His only dream was getting into a top university. Instead, he ends up at the city's most notorious delinquent school. Every day, he just wants to study in peace. But every bully who gets in his way ends up flat on the ground. Before he realizes it, the honor student who hates fighting becomes the strongest delinquent in school. Can he keep his double life a secret long enough to graduate? The story began with the protagonist's memories. He had always loved to study. He would sit down at his desk, open his textbooks, and pick up a pencil at any time. He invariably ranked first and, of course, received top marks on all exams. A silent question inevitably arose. Why did he love studying so much? Makoto Niritu's childhood flashed before his eyes. Every time he answered a question correctly, his mother would sit next to him and say, "Niritu, he's a genius." He had gotten a perfect score, time and again. His mother always praised him. Naturally, he chose Asayoka High School for his high school entrance exam. Niritu was certain that if he got into the prefecture's best elite school, he would be able to spend his time happily studying diligently alongside peers as passionate about knowledge as he was. That was how it was supposed to be, but he failed the exam. Instead, he ended up at the city's most notorious school for troubled teenagers, Shorin High School. Why did he fail the exam when everyone said he'd pass without a problem? His parents were just as disappointed as he was. That day, he was standing at the subway station. After his mother called, his phone fell to the floor and shattered. Niritu thought he'd never have imagined something like this could happen. After that, his mother desperately went to every school, begging them to admit him, but she was rejected everywhere. And so he found himself at Shoran Prefectural High School, freshman year, sophomore year, inside a classroom. He thought, after all, this is the only place he's ever gotten into, a place where he was surrounded by nothing but marginalized kids. At that moment, a slipper flew at one of the students. The bullies exchanged glances and said, "Not a bad blow, okay?" Ultimately, the protagonist decided to focus solely on improving his grades to get into a prestigious college, and then Ren suggested making things more challenging. Ken looked at him and asked, "Hey, what do you think about this?" Ren started tapping his hand with his slipper and said, "Doesn't it irritate them when he shows off like this? Who studies here anyway?" Then he looked at the protagonist, swung the slipper, and said, "Who cares?" The next second, the protagonist looked away and sharply pulled his head back, dodging the flying slipper. Ren said, "Damn, missed." Ken chuckled. "Is he next?" The protagonist sighed mentally. "I knew it. The situation is just terrible." Then he looked at his wristwatch and thought, "So it's 4:15 now. There's no time to waste. Every second counts." He quickly packed his notebooks into his bag and decided, it's time to act. After that, he opened the exam preparation materials on his phone, the listening section. Voices came from his phone. "Dude, does he really not understand why he is picking a fight? Isn't this trendy? And does being trendy make it interesting to him?" The protagonist thought there was nothing funny about this. It was completely pointless, putting fleeting pleasure above all else. That's how they thought. That's why he couldn't stand this atmosphere. The troubled teenagers were so noisy that he couldn't concentrate on his studies. But strangely enough, even this place turned out to be useful for him. If it weren't for this school, he would have gone mad from despair. And now he still had a chance to enter university. He would strive not only to pass the general exam, but also to receive a national recommendation. He couldn't understand one thing: how, even at this school, he managed to get grades sufficient for a recommendation. The university accepted students even from low-ranked schools. This opportunity was his last chance. Sometime later, he stopped in front of the Toei Preparatory School building and thought how glad he was to be able to come here. Soon he found the right room. The students greeted him happily. He smiled, looking at the others, and thought, there are worthy conversationalists here. Wednesday is the day when he has preparatory classes. At that moment, a girl approached him and said hello. She noticed that he was early again today. It was Keide Ranzuki. She was a first-year student at Asayoka High School. The protagonist thought, she is his best rival. He smiled and greeted her. "Today is a great day." She came closer and replied, "Oh yeah, the seating arrangement changes today, right?" At this preparatory school, the seating arrangement was determined after each mock exam. The students with the highest scores sat in the front left row in order. After that, they looked at the first semester rankings, and Ranzuki said, right. Her seat was on the right side again. The protagonist sat down next to her and said, but this time it was close. Then Ranzuki reached for her bag and said, he always says that. Oh, right. The Mathematical Research Club presentation is tomorrow. MC looked at her bag and noticed the Asahioka Prefectural High School badge. He thought, the Mathematical Research Club, so that's what they do in Asahioka. If everything went as he wanted, he would be there. And then Ranzuki said, if it's him, Niritu, then she can trust him. Will he help her practice her presentation? Niritu was surprised and then replied, yes, of course. After that, the door to the office opened. The teacher walked forward and said, okay, everyone, take your seats. He has some announcements before the lecture starts, so listen carefully. He put the magazine on the table and then added, lately, one of the students has been causing them trouble. One of the students was surprised. Trouble? The teacher replied, that's right. It looks like there was a violent incident. Whispers could be heard in the classroom. Another mentally disturbed teenager? Scary. He couldn't do that. He got into a fight with the Shorin students again. The teacher said, no one should allow something like that. Anyone who breaks the rules will be expelled immediately. The protagonist thought, it can't be. If anyone finds out he's connected to the Shorin bully, bullies, he'll be considered a troublemaker and expelled from the cram school. Ranzuki said, horrible. She smiled, looking at the protagonist, and asked, Niritu, he's from the same school, right? Is he okay? Well, he's not some pugnacious type, so everything will be fine. Niritu scratched his head awkwardly and laughed lightly. He said he was okay. As evening fell, Niritu left the school and sighed loudly. He thought, even though Ranzuki said so, he's not like them. He clenched his teeth in frustration and thought, he has goals he needs to achieve. But this guy always starts fights anywhere and anytime. Sooner or later, he'll get dragged in too. If that happens, he'll be expelled immediately. Will he be able to enter university alone in this situation? What should he do? At that moment, he heard loud laughter and shouting. He peeked around the corner and thought, what is that? Voices. Then Ren grabbed Ranzuki and she screamed. They have to let her go. It hurts, the protagonist thought in surprise. Ranzuki, she screamed in irritation. Idiot. She stepped on the attacker's foot, but he grabbed her arm and screamed. Does she think she can get away with it? She closed her eyes and screamed for them to stop. The protagonist thought, he has to help. He remembered the teacher's words about violators being expelled immediately and thought, no, he can't. If he got involved, he'd be expelled instantly. But then another thought occurred to him. He had to help her now. At that moment, Ren held Ranzuki close, tears streaming down her face, and Ken began to advance on her. One of the bullies suggested, let's record this too. Niritu thought, damn, there's no time to think. Maybe he should call someone? No, if he did that, they definitely wouldn't have time to save her by then. She'd be expelled. Wasn't there a way to help without putting himself in danger? He had to think. There had to be a way. If he disguised himself so no one would recognize him. Then he looked at the poster hanging on the wall and thought, exactly, this is it. If he put on those glasses and combed his hair differently, it should work. Then he carried out those actions, and Ranzuki screamed, they have to stop. Someone. She begged for help from anyone, and the bullies continued to press her mercilessly. But the next second, the protagonist jumped right at them. He kicked Ren far back and then landed, looking forward with a serious look. He thought, no one must know it was him. This is the only way to save Ranzuki without great risk. Ken ran forward and shouted, he's a freak. At that moment, a memory surfaced in Ranzuki's mind, how the same boy once stood in front of her, protecting her from a gang of bandits. Then Ken swung his fist and shouted. He decided to play the hero. He punched in front of him, but the protagonist ducked, dodging the blow. Then he grabbed the attacker by the head and kneed him in the face. Throwing Ken to the ground, he followed up with a kick. Then MC grabbed Ranzuki's arm and shouted, now's their chance! Come on, let's run! Ken rose to his hands and knees, looked after them, and clenched his fist, shouting, damn it! Hey, stop! The protagonist turned around and shouted, he's just going to leave him like this? Ken shouted in surprise. Then he looked at Ren, who was lying unconscious. He clenched his teeth in irritation and thought that one blow was enough for him. Then he noticed the Shorin High School student ID lying nearby. He decided to clarify this later. After some time, Ranzuki said that she was very grateful to him for walking her home, and Niritu said that after what happened, it was natural. He smiled, looking at her. Ranzuki blushed with embarrassment. Niritu frowned and thought that she was staring at him too intently. He hoped that she didn't understand anything. The glasses, the hairstyle, and his whole demeanor was different. He needed to distract her somehow. Then Ranzuki noticed that her uniform was a little torn. She started to straighten her shirt, and he handed her his jacket, saying she could take it if she wanted. He draped it over her shoulders. She asked if he was sure and thanked him. Then her gaze caught on a detail of the uniform, and she stopped. Wait, was this uniform from Shorin High School? Niritu thought he'd miscalculated. How could he have missed that? He didn't know how bad things would get if she found out. And then Ranzuki asked if he was sure about what he'd done. She assumed those guys were from Shorin too, and wondered if he wasn't afraid he'd get in trouble at school tomorrow because of this. She looked at him, and he said that wasn't the point. He thought she was right. The consequences could indeed be bad, but he added that it had to be done. He remembered his father's words. Listen, Niritu. He doesn't advise fighting, but there are situations when you have to use your fists. Niritu thought this was just the right situation, protecting the weaker. Although, frankly, it was complicated. They didn't even really know each other. But if he saw defenseless people being beaten, of course he would help. Ranzuki smiled, looked at him, and asked if it would be too intrusive if she got his contact information. She would need to return his uniform. He looked at her fearfully and told her not to worry about it. He laughed awkwardly, thinking that he couldn't just suggest she throw away the uniform. Then she leaned over, came closer to him, and said that in that case he should at least tell her his name. She would definitely return the uniform and thank him for today. He turned away, awkwardly scratched his head, and muttered that he should say his name. He thought he couldn't say a real one. He would have to come up with a nickname, although he never had one. He began mentally going over the syllables, hesitated, and then said, Futano. Ranzuki asked thoughtfully, Futano? The next morning, the clock showed 4:58. MC sat up in bed, looked at the time, and was surprised. He had woken up earlier than usual today. He reached for his glasses and thought that after yesterday's incident, the chances of running into students from Shorin had definitely increased. But to stay in the cram school, he absolutely must not run into them. Then the alarm rang at 5. The protagonist turned it off and thought that the conditions remained the same. He was still in his house. After that, he adjusted his glasses on his face and thought, today, like every day, only studying, more studying, prepare to the max, need to wake up. The first thing after waking up is to drink a full bottle of water. Niritu started drinking water and thought, First thing, morning hydration. Water balance improves blood circulation. Prepare to the max. Endurance, running, autogenic training. After a while, he went outside and started running. He thought, running, I can't miss a day. According to his beliefs, morning exercise is optimal for improving study efficiency. Prepare to the max. Failures are a reason to keep working. Every time he made a mistake, he needed to do strength training. It was like training his muscles. Solve problems, solve them until he finished. If he made a mistake, he did strength training. He was ready to repeat this cycle endlessly. After some time, the clock showed 7:30. Niritu looked at it and thought it was time for a snack. After that, he opened the refrigerator, took out a container, and thought, thanks, Mom. Then he started eating and said, bon appetit. With these words, he looked at the photo of his father. The clock showed 7:45. Narita thought, okay, time to go. Then he smiled and said that he was leaving. After some time, the protagonist found himself in the hallway of the first floor of Shorin High School. He walked forward and thought, the main thing is to be careful. Don't run into the Shorin students. After that, he opened the door to the classroom a crack, and the bullies screamed. Ren pointed his finger at him and shouted, he knew it, it's him, no doubt about it. Ken ran up to him and shouted, get him, it's him. The protagonist took a defensive stance and thought, what's going on? The guys approached him and put their hands on his shoulders. Ken handed him an ID and asked if it was his. Ren fixed his hair, took off his glasses and asked, can he see now? Ken added, yes, it really is that guy. The protagonist thought, what's going on? Are these the same guys from yesterday? Damn, he doesn't remember their faces. Then Ken took the protagonist's hand and told him to come here. He thought, this is bad. If this all comes out, there will be problems. They've remembered him and will take revenge. Word will spread to the preparatory school where he faces immediate expulsion. He must avoid that. Ren then handed him some chalk and told him to take it. The protagonist thought in surprise, huh? Ren walked up to the board, hit it, and told him to write his name on it. Niritu thought in surprise, why? Is this a new way to humiliate the one about to be beaten up? He asked, what? And then wrote his name and thought that for now he would have to play by their rules. After that, Ren took the chalk from him and said, great. MC thought, freshman war? Then Ren put his hand on the protagonist's shoulder, turned to the rest of the class and shouted, hey everyone, listen up, it's the same guy who knocked him out yesterday. Now he is a participant in the battle from their class. The protagonist was surprised. What? Ken came closer and shouted, great. The rest of the class began to shout joyfully, and Takeshi Matsuda remained sitting motionless. 5 years ago, Matsuda adored bad boys. Since childhood, he devoured books about the histories of biker gangs and manga about difficult teenagers. He considered them strong, cool, real heroes. Shorin High School gave birth to countless legends. Matsuda really wanted to see real delinquents, so in the end, he decided to go there. At first, he was filled with excitement and admiration. He thought he would now see them up close. After a while, Shorin High School, the parking lot behind the gym. One of the delinquents looked at him and said, hey, Matsuda, he should buy them some yakisoba bread. They're friends, right? Matsuda thought that reality was completely different from what he imagined, but he smiled happily and replied, aha, he gets it. In manga, delivery boys often became dear friends. He kept clinging to this thought. However, he couldn't fit into their company. The delinquents he read about protected their friends and were ready to break fists for them. But here, everything was different. Present time. Shorin High School, freshman, sophomore year. Matsuda thought, the famous Shorin High tradition is about to begin, the freshman war. I wonder who will be chosen this year? Could it be him? The next second, Fung kicked Matsuda in the back and shouted, hey, what's he looking like? All goggles. Matsuda fell to the ground and shouted, damn! He started to rise on trembling arms. Fung flexed his fists, spat to the side and said, he doesn't like this. He's not arguing, he's strong enough, but should they listen to some nerd in glasses because of that? He clenched his fist and shouted, this is irritating him even more. Matsuda covered his head with his hands, trying to defend himself. But the next second, the protagonist stopped the attacker's fist. Fung froze in surprise. Before he could say anything, the MC looked at the time and said, 8:50. Classes start. After that, he calmly sat down in his seat. Ren, visibly nervous at first, clapped his hands and said, okay, cool. Matsuda thought, he finally found it. This man is exactly like those he had read about. After some time, the protagonist looked at his watch and thought, 12:35. He glanced at his lunch and clasping his hands in a prayer pose said, bon appetit. But the next second, the classroom door swung open and Matsuda ran inside. He shouted, Niritu. His name is Matsuda. After that, he approached Niritu in the hallway and offered to go to the next class together. Then he looked into the toilet stall and shouted, Niritu, does he have a stomach ache? The protagonist thought, why is he following him everywhere? At that moment, Matsuda was walking behind him and shouting, Niritu, wait. The protagonist looked at his watch again and thought, it's so late. He must somehow get rid of him. It's time to go to cram school. If he quickly changes location, he won't follow him anymore. Sometime later, Toei prep school, before the exam, the protagonist walked further and then heard Matsuda's voice. He exclaimed in surprise, wow, Niritu, he goes to these classes? He came closer, smiling happily, and added, he heard that even getting in here is difficult. This is amazing. Niritu cursed silently. Is he even trying? He followed him all the way here? His face began to sweat. He thought, he found out about his prep school and could spread rumors in Shoran, and they, in turn, could attack the prep school. Then he would be instantly expelled. This is bad. He turned sharply to Matsuda and asked, why does he keep pestering him? Matsuda opened his backpack and said, He wanted to show him this Niritu. The protagonist thought, he can't hear him at all. Wait, what is this? He looked at the book Matsuda was holding, then looked away and suddenly noticed. Teacher? Niritu noticed the injuries on Matsuda's face and thought that was bad. He grabbed his hand and pulled him in the opposite direction, saying, if anyone finds out he's been getting into fights in front of the school, he'll be finished. He thought that if he were mistakenly considered a problem student, he'd be expelled from the cram school immediately. When they were a safe distance away, Niritu asked, hey Matsuda, if he's not mistaken, can he stop stalking him? Matsuda looked surprised. Why? Niritu added, and about him going to cram school, couldn't he just keep it to himself? Matsuda immediately replied, he gets it, so it's their secret. The protagonist thought, good, he's surprisingly obedient. But Matsuda immediately added, but in exchange for his silence, he wants him to participate in the freshman war. He handed Niritu a book about the history of Shoran, the freshman war. MC thought, now that he remembers, that title was on the board. He scratched his head awkwardly and asked, what is this? Matsuda exclaimed, what? He doesn't know. It's the main event of the year. Niritu thought awkwardly, of course he doesn't know. Matsuda opened the book and began to explain. The freshman war, in simple terms, is a tournament, a battle for the title of the strongest student among the freshmen. It's an annual tradition and everything is incredibly exciting. Niritu replied, I see. Then, he accidentally noticed his photo glued to the spread of the book and froze. He thought, wait. He asked, who is actually participating in this? Matsuda said enthusiastically, who? Of course him, Niritu. The protagonist looked at him in surprise. He asked again, the freshman war? Matsuda smiled broadly. Yeah, that's right. Niritu immediately began to object. No, he is not participating. Matsuda cried out in surprise. What? At that moment, MC looked at his wristwatch and said, 5:45 p.m. Yeah, it's about time. Classes are starting soon, so he's going. See you tomorrow. He took a few steps forward. Matsuda, holding out his hand, shouted, hey, Niritu. Wait, the freshman war is an unofficial event passed down through generations at Shoran High School. Each first-year class nominates a representative, and they compete against each other, putting the honor of their class on the line. The strongest one is awarded the title of Supreme Freshman, thus proving which class possesses the greatest power. The winner, naturally, gains control of the entire freshman hierarchy, and the losers and their classes are deprived of the right to oppose the winner. It's an all-out struggle for dominance and power, like wild animals fighting for territory. As for refusing to fight, except in special cases, it automatically equates to last place. This is a world where the strongest survive. The next day, the school hallways were full of talk about Niritu. One student said in surprise, really? He's competing as a second year? The protagonist was inside a classroom at Shoran High School, first year, second year. He calmly filled out his notebook while the conversations around him continued. No way, he looks so weak. And they say that this Four Eyes guy is actually strong? He heard he took out 2 people at once without even breaking a sweat. Oh, and yesterday he instantly stopped a fight when someone was about to get beaten up. According to the person he helped. Was he really that tough? A few guys even peered through the classroom window to get a better look at him. Niritu gritted his teeth and thought, how noisy. Why did they even decide to send him to this stupid competition? He just didn't want the lesson to be interrupted, so he stopped that fight. That's all. And helping Matsuda wasn't that hard. He hadn't even intended to take part in this stupid freshman war. Meanwhile, in class, one of the students muttered, either way, he was chosen. For now, he had no choice but to trust him. The bearded guy had always been the coolest in the class. If even he says that the Four Eyes guy will go, then he'll have to accept it. The other one added nervously, but seriously, will everything be okay? Their class's reputation and the standing of the freshmen depend on this guy. If he loses, then all of them. After a while, a voice came over the loudspeaker. A student at the microphone shouted, the first round of the freshman war starts at 2:30 p.m. and will last until 4:30 p.m. Get ready, worms. At that moment, the protagonist got up from his desk and thought, it's probably time to go. 4:20 p.m. is the perfect time to leave. War, battle, whatever you call it, doesn't apply to him. He doesn't care. He gathered his things and headed for the exit. Matsuda, noticing this, shouted, wait, Niritu? Niritu stopped and asked, what? Matsuda exhaled, the freshman war is about to start. Where is he going? Niritu calmly replied, where else? Home. The other students looked after him in confusion. And then Fang barked, what? What the hell is this? He's quitting. He was the one who said he'd represent their class. MC turned around abruptly and pointing a finger at Ren was indignant. He said that. He didn't say he'd fight. Ren smiled awkwardly and said, wait, he beat him. He remembers? He knocked out the strongest guy in the class, so it's obvious he's coming. The protagonist stepped into the hallway and loudly declared, he doesn't remember beating him. He kept walking. Matsuda followed, shouting, wait, where is he going? He'll fix everything. He has to be here, Niritu. Niritu didn't slow down. It's not his problem. He needs to get to the preparatory courses. The first semester mock exams are coming soon. If he gets a high enough score, he'll get into the advanced class. I don't have time to waste on meaningless things. He has goals for the future. He needs to prepare. He should understand that, right? Fighting at their age is just childish and stupid. He's tired of this nonsense. They should leave him alone. With that, the protagonist walked away. Matsuda, watching him go, sighed resignedly. Several students immediately approached him. One chuckled. Looks like he just got abandoned, huh? Miyamoto Reima threw his arm over his shoulder and said, "Hey Matsuda, where did the member from his class run off to?" After a while, the protagonist went outside and thought he never wanted to be part of this community, much less fight for it, but for some reason he was chosen to lead an event he would avoid at all costs. Maybe he overdid it, but he still follows him around. Now he's even spreading rumors that he's the strongest. It's too dangerous. Being chosen isn't a privilege, it's an unwanted burden. He really should stay away from Matsuda. Let this system collapse without his participation. Whatever happens to him next is no longer his business. Damn it. His phone was blowing up with notifications. He couldn't concentrate. One of the messages was from Matsuda. Naritu thought in surprise. A video? But he hadn't given him his contact information. He froze. Wait, what the hell? Attached to the message were several videos and text. His friend is in danger. He had a really bad feeling about this. He opened the video. On the screen, Reima was beating Matsuda. He was sitting on a chair, tied up, naked, covered in bruises. The protagonist thought in shock, Matsuda, he's tied up. In the video, Reima punched the air and barked. Okay, that's enough. He has to tell them where Naritu is. Matsuda, gritting his teeth, croaked. He doesn't know. Naritu, looking at the screen, thought, is he asking where he is? Why is it Matsuda talking? Why is he putting up with this for him? Reima grabbed Matsuda by the head and delivered a powerful knee to the chest. The protagonist clenched his fists. Why had he treated him so coldly? Why was this happening? Reima continued to punch, shouting, one more time, one more time. Ryoma Kiritani was watching from the window. Matsuda hoarsely shouted, he won't say it, he will never say it. Reima coldly asked, really, it doesn't matter. He grabbed a chair, swung it, and growled, die, freak. So his righteous hero never showed up. He was finished, but the next second, someone's hand suddenly grabbed the chair leg, preventing it from collapsing. Reima froze, then barked in surprise. He finally came. 30 minutes ago, the Shorin High School staff room. The teacher yawned widely at the computer and then stood up. At that moment, Kiritani entered the room and muttered, damn, he really is careless. No wonder the students are out of control. He walked over to the computer, glanced at the screen, and added, how careless. Found the class list, and his page is opening. Thank goodness. Here is information about the guy he's looking for. A card with the protagonist's data appeared on the monitor. Kiritani licked his lips and whispered, jackpot. Then he sent a message to the protagonist. Naritu was standing in front of Toei Preparatory School. He had just opened the video he had received, and screams came from it. Does he know where Naritu is? On the recording, Matsuda shouted, he doesn't know. He would never say anything. MC froze, then thought, what the hell is going on? How did it even come to this? Why? Why is Matsuda going through all this? He remembered Matsuda trying to persuade him to participate in the freshman war. Honestly, at first he was just a nuisance to him, and frankly, that feeling never completely went away. But his upbringing didn't allow him to just pass by. Helping others was the right thing to do. But could he really call him a friend? If he interfered now, he would get into even more trouble. But this was an important moment. He felt it with every fiber of his being. His father's words flashed before his eyes. Don't make a choice you'll regret, even if it kills him. The next second, a new message from Kiritani popped up on his phone. His friend was going to die soon. Did he know? The protagonist took off and ran towards the school. Meanwhile, at Shorin High School, Class 1-1, Matsuda was still sitting in his chair, tied up. Another blow landed in his face. A fist, then another. One of the students turned to Reima and asked, hey, how many times has he hit him already? Reima shrugged indifferently. Probably about 20. He chuckled. Oh yeah, and what? It was for nothing. Reima grinned wryly. It felt good. Who cares? He wasn't eager to take Naritu anyway. Die, you jerk. He swung again, but at that moment the door swung open. The protagonist burst into the classroom and grabbed a chair leg. Reima froze, then burst out laughing. Wow, he looks cool. He's hesitating. Because of him, his friend got beat up. Poor thing. Matsuda, seeing Naritu, asked, why did he come? Naritu snapped. Is he stupid or what? He should have told him everything right away. What a mess they've made of him. What would he have done if he hadn't come? He jumped to the chair and began hastily untying the ropes on Matsuda's hands. Matsuda whispered through tears, I'm sorry. He understands. He takes his studies seriously. That's why Naritu didn't let him finish. Classes could wait. He thought, the main thing is to choose what he truly believes is right. He took off his glasses, put them in his pocket, took a deep breath, and fixed his hair. His father's words echoed in his head again. Pull yourself together. And, looking straight at Reima, Naritu firmly said, now he is dealing with him. A few seconds later, the protagonist clenched his fist and decisively declared he is a participant in the freshman war. Naritu. In response, Reima burst out laughing and, stretching out his hand forward, shouted, this is excellent. The other classes are already watching them. It's time to begin. He rushed into the attack, shouting, let's go. Ever since Reima came to Shoran, he'd been dreaming of this moment. He was the captain of the first-year class, and now he could finally show what he's made of. He shouted, the first round of the freshman war begins. Across from him stood the protagonist, the captain of the second-year class, the freshman war. Round 1, beginning. Reima launched a sharp punch in front of himself, but the MC deftly dodged. Reima immediately turned and swung his fist again. The protagonist frowned, watching his movements, and once again dodged the blow, causing Reima to crash into the wall. Naritu thought, this is a very powerful blow. If he takes it directly, he's finished. This is the pain Matsuda had been enduring all this time. Reima, glaring at his opponent, barked, what the hell? All he does is dodge. This is a battlefield, does he understand? If he just keeps running, there will be no end to it. The next second, he threw out a sharp fist, and the blow still connected with his opponent's face. Reima rubbed the bruised area and, laughing slightly, said, "Not bad, but it doesn't hurt him." After that, the protagonist went on the offensive, delivering quick, precise blows. Reima began to lose his balance and thought, "It's impossible to dodge." The protagonist calmly counted. 3 blows landed. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Then he swung his legs sharply and hit his opponent between the legs, shouting, "13." Reima fell to the floor with a crash. Niritu leaned over him and calmly asked. Matsuda withstood more than 20 blows. "And how many did he take?" He came closer, took the glasses Matsuda gave him, and put them on. Then he asked, "How does it feel? Did you enjoy beating Matsuda?" "There is nothing fun about it. It's just painful, scary, and disgusting." He doesn't understand him. With these words, he turned and headed into the hallway. Turning to Matsuda, who was still standing, swaying, he said, "Why is he standing here? They need to go." They walked out into the hallway, and the rest of the students watched them silently. The winner of the first round of the freshman war, Niritu, Matsuda rushed after him, shouting, "Wait, Niritu!" And someone from the crowd shouted, "Four Eyes won." Immediately, a murmur swept through the classroom. "This guy is good. Yes, he is strong." A little to the side of the crowd stood Fumiya Inui. He put his hands in his pockets and calmly walked on. Not long before, he had seen one of the students hit a guy in the basement of some office. Inui muttered, "At it again." Next to him walked Rui Narumiya, the heir to the conglomerate, and smirked. It was his own fault for screwing up. He kicked the air, as if testing his own resolve, and asked, "So how's this freshman war of theirs going? Anything interesting?" Inui sat down on the couch and answered calmly, "It's just getting started. But 2 or 3 of the guys look really strong. One of them is a nerdy smart guy in glasses." Rui raised an eyebrow. "A nerd from Shoran? Sounds unexpected. What does he look like?" Inui, who was a second-year 4th grader at Shoran, took out his phone and showed a photo. He said, "Here, I took a photo today." He looked at the picture and sighed. "He looks like a perfectly ordinary, diligent student. So what should they do with him?" Inui chuckled. "If he really is like Fang says, then they definitely need him." Sometime later, in the Shoran High School infirmary, Matsuda sat up in bed, wincing in pain. MC peeked behind the screen and asked irritably, "Is anyone here? Seriously, why is there no teacher or nurse behind that screen?" Matsuda extended his hand to him and shouted, "Niritu!" Niritu immediately cut him off. "Calm down, he's wounded." But Matsuda, despite the pain, said, "That was amazing. He can win this freshman war. He knew it. He's insanely strong. It was a complete rout. He really did." He didn't have time to finish his sentence. He cried out in sharp pain and grabbed his elbow, shouting, "It hurts." The protagonist sternly said, "No sudden movements. Otherwise, the wound will open again." He himself could hardly believe that in front of him was the same guy who had recently been beaten half to death. Niritu handed Matsuda a bandage. "Take it. He just found it." But he still needed to go to the hospital later. He sat down next to him. Matsuda nodded. "Yes, he knows. Thank you." At that moment, Kiritani peeked behind the screen and loudly declared, "Well, the first round of the freshman war is over." It was impressive. He started clapping his hands, and the protagonist looked at him in surprise. Kiritani grinned widely. "He really is strong, taking down such a big guy so easily." "Ah, right. He is Kiritani. Nice to meet you, classmate." Niritu looked at him silently, expressing neither joy nor interest. Kiritani came closer, as if not noticing the coldness, and leaning slightly said, "He really is strong, he must admit it. He could never do that. Frankly, he is jealous." He waved his hands as if releasing the tension, and added, "Well, he thinks this is enough for an introduction." Heading for the exit, he turned around and asked, "Will they be friends? They are classmates after all." He is looking forward to seeing what he is capable of, Niritu. He took the lollipop out of his mouth, smiled, and left. Matsuda immediately asked, "Kiritani, why did he even come here?" Niritu shrugged. "He doesn't know. He looks suspicious." Matsuda called him again. "Wait, he has something for him." It seemed strange to ask after he had just saved him, but why? The protagonist raised an eyebrow. "Why?" Matsuda folded his hands in front of him and continued insistently, "Why did you save him?" Niritu adjusted his glasses and calmly replied, "No particular reason. He simply follows his principles. He did what he had to." Matsuda frowned. "Principles?" Then he leaned forward and quietly added, "He kept quiet about his courses, right? He could have told everyone, but he didn't." So, the next second, Matsuda abruptly hugged him, shouting, "Niritu!" Niritu immediately pulled away. "Hey, too close!" Matsuda, a little embarrassed, still didn't back down. But then, how did he know he'd been beaten? The protagonist froze. What? That message, that video, who even sent it? At that moment, loud shouts came from the hallway. "They say he's leaving now. The freshman war is really in full swing today. Hurry." The MC abruptly turned towards the exit, peered out into the hallway, and muttered in surprise, "What? Another freshman war?" Matsuda grabbed Niritu's hand and, pointing towards the hallway, shouted, "They have to go. There's a match with another class now." The protagonist tried to hold him back. "Wait, he can't move so suddenly." But Matsuda wasn't listening. "They say it's Shoki Takeda. It'll be very interesting. A match like that can't be missed." The protagonist frowned. "Takeda? Who is that?" Matsuda feverishly began flipping through his notebook. "Wait a second. Here, look." He unfolded the notebook and pointed to the page. It was the freshman war standings. He could face him in the next round. Takeda was a true fighter for justice. Well, he knew, the kind with a man's spirit, who always stood his ground. Niritu raised an eyebrow skeptically. Didn't that contradict the fact that he was supposedly a bad guy? Matsuda nodded eagerly. Yeah, things like that had happened before. Some guys were the complete opposite of justice, while others, well, they just lived by their own principles. The people he used to imitate actually existed, even in the real world. He suddenly looked at Naritu and firmly said, he knew. The people he now imitated were him, Naritu. MC pointed at himself in surprise. Him? Matsuda grabbed his hand again. Yeah, for him, he was the perfect delinquent. Well, I mean, not someone who just beats up everyone, but someone who does what he thinks is right, even if it's hard. Oh, the Takeda match is already starting. We have to hurry. Naritu muttered under his breath. The perfect delinquent, huh? They rushed out into the corridor. Naritu was still indignant. Is he kidding me? He's never been a bad guy. Sometime later, the west wing of Shorin High School. The protagonist glanced at the crowd and thought, there are so many people here. He never thought the freshman war was such a large-scale event. Matsuda, barely containing his delight, pointed his finger somewhere ahead. Naritu, he has to see. Over there, it's Takeda. At that moment, Takeda sent his opponent to the floor with a powerful punch and calmly asked, is it over already? He was the captain of the 4th class. His opponent, breathing heavily, raised himself up on his elbows and barked. Freak. Takeda stepped closer and said coldly, he's going to end this so easily? Does he want to disgrace his class? Show some fighting spirit. He bears a responsibility on his shoulders to everyone who believes in him. He can't just give up because of one blow. The guy spat and snapped. Damn, he's always preaching that outdated morality of his. Just shut up. Takeda clenched his fist and shouted, then he should come at him like his life depended on it. The opponent howled in anger, swung his arm and shouted, he talks too much. He struck forward, but Takeda easily dodged and then appeared behind him. The opponent spun around and launched a roundhouse kick, aiming for the head, but Takeda managed to dodge, only slightly moving his head. Takeda thought, a roundhouse kick? Not bad, but he's acting too relaxed, like he's not taking the fight seriously. He smirked. Too relaxed? Or is he just holding back? The guy growled. So is he. Weakling. He swung again, but this time, Takeda didn't dodge. He caught his fist in flight and said harshly, being relaxed means holding back, and he doesn't even know how to do that. Why the hell did he even come out here if he's not ready to fight? And then he delivered a crushing series of punches, sending his opponent to the floor again. He muttered, and this, in his opinion, is a blow from someone who's holding back. The first round of the freshman war in this pair, Takeda wins. Sometime later, Takeda was walking down the street, his bag slung over his shoulder. Then he put his hand to his stomach and thought, I should not waste time on trifles today and go to that cafe to eat. Then he heard sounds behind him and turning around, asked what else. Fang was standing behind him with several hooligans. He held the crowbar in his hands and said, hey Takeda, what is he purring like that for? In a good mood, or what? Takeda turned around and barked, what? Why is he bothering him? He glanced at the others and added, there are so many people, it doesn't look like a friendly meeting. They're crowded here like cockroaches. Fung chuckled. Cockroaches, huh? So he's their bait. Takeda was indignant. What is he talking about? What nonsense. After that, he took a few steps forward and froze in surprise. Inui? Inui said coldly, what bad manners? To address elders by just their first names? At that moment, Rui passed by and said, fine. He leaves everything to him, Inui. He nodded. He understood. Rui added, just no excesses, okay? It would be a shame if he breaks. Otherwise, he'll blame everything on him. Inui chuckled. Fine, he'll try not to hit him too hard. Although here it's more up to him. He could have pardoned him. He's a kind guy after all. Takeda snorted. Did he even realize what he said? He shouldn't think he's settling everything here peacefully. He understands that, right? Inui chuckled again. Scary, as expected of a guy who reached the semifinals of the freshman war. Takeda narrowed his eyes. What's the matter? Who are these people with you? Inui calmly answered, nothing special. He's here to recruit him. Takeda asked, puzzled. What? Recruit? He answered, that's right, Takeda. He has real talent. Honestly, it's impressive. He pointed a finger at him and added, such an ability should be used where it can be applied best. So he will work for him. He will be one of those who are used. Takeda still didn't understand. What? Fung waved his hand and Inui added, he's useful. That's why they don't want him to go to waste. A good offer, right? Takeda barked. Proposal? What is he even talking about? Is he crazy? Inui raised an eyebrow. Any other questions? Guys, we need to make him more obedient. Go ahead. Someone walked in the opposite direction and said, he's tough, so don't hold back too much. Fung assumed a fighting stance and replied, yeah. Takeda muttered after him, freak. At that moment, a guy jumped at him from behind, swinging a bat. Takeda threw his bag aside and barked, what nonsense? He spun around and kicked the attacker. He grabbed another guy by the face and shouted, this is just a regular fight, and they call this recruitment? This is idiotic. He punched the next attacker and then smirked. But on the other hand, they'll give him good training today. He attacked his next opponent with his elbow, and noticing a few more people behind him, he said, come on guys. And this was just getting interesting. He spun around and delivered a series of punches and kicks. After a while, he straightened up, sighed, and remarked, well, he had warmed up well. He reached for his bag and added, but do they know, they didn't impress him. He stood surrounded by beaten students and said coldly, he was hoping for a more serious fight. Hey, where is the one who said he would work for him? Who would go to serve someone weaker? In that case, he would gladly refuse to join them. But the next second, a blow flew at his head. A man with a crowbar stood behind him. Inui asked, since when did he say that they were all his subordinates? Takeda trembled with rage and shouted, he is a coward. The man chuckled. A coward? You think fighting is a sport? He still idolizes comic book heroes? He can't let his guard down, right? He came closer, grabbed Takeda by the hair, and muttered, it's the same as war. Truth is always on the winning side. It's simple, right? No matter what methods he uses, if they don't lead to success, he won't get respect. So what's his answer? The next second, Takeda spat in his face and hissed, his confidence. What kind of idiot would listen to the nonsense of such a loser? Inui smiled and said, so that's it. Well then, nothing can be done. They have to beat him up. The next second, the guys with crowbars pounced on Takeda. But soon Feng stopped in surprise and the others froze, looking at him. Feng exhaled. This is too much, man. Inui, maybe it's time to stop? Inui silently surveyed everyone, then walked closer to Takeda and looking down at him, coldly remarked, how pathetic. He hoped he'd learned. People who preach fair play only shine in sports and comics. Then he turned and waved to the others. Let's go. Takeda extended his hand forward, screaming, wait. But the next second, his consciousness faded and he collapsed on the pavement. Meanwhile, MC was walking down the street. He accidentally bumped into a passerby with his shoulder and immediately apologized. Rui, who turned out to be the passerby, turned around, looked at Naruto and grinned. No, he should be the one apologizing. Then Ranzuki ran up to them and exclaimed joyfully, huh, Naruto, they're so happy to meet. Let's go to class together. She came closer and added, today are the mock exams. We need to give it our all. The protagonist awkwardly rubbed his neck and muttered, yeah, he knows. Is she overly motivated or something? Then Rui chuckled and asked, hey Ranzuki, she shouldn't leave him out if he's her acquaintance. Why not introduce us? Ranzuki immediately became embarrassed and started making excuses. Sorry, she got a little carried away. This is her friend from cram school. His name is Naruto. Rui smiled broadly. So he's Naruto? Nice to meet you. The protagonist adjusted his glasses and quietly replied, him too. Rui added, Naruto, huh? Nice name. Sounds nice. The protagonist looked at him in surprise and bowed his head slightly, thanking him for the words. Rui hesitated for a moment, then spoke again. By the way, Naruto? He asked. Yeah? He said when he saw him, he didn't even think he had such a strong physique. He recently started boxing and... MC looked up sharply, his chest skipping a beat. Was that a killing urge? Rui suddenly swung his arm wide, mimicking a punch, and shouted cheerfully, he looks very talented at this. His mon. The fist froze right next to the protagonist's face. Rui chuckled. So that's how it is. He's holding up well. Well, did it go well, Naruto? The protagonist awkwardly adjusted his glasses and muttered. He doesn't know. He's only read about fights and stuff. Rui raised an eyebrow. About fights? He thought for a second, then clarified. He was actually talking about boxing. The protagonist became even more embarrassed and adjusted his glasses again. Then Rui turned his gaze to Ranzuki and spread his hands. Apparently, nothing can be done. From the outside, it probably really looked strange. Ranzuki said, honestly, she was so scared. Don't do that again. The protagonist laughed awkwardly. The thought flashed through his mind. Damn, he's been spending too much time with hooligans lately. Rui put his hand on his shoulder and said, it was nice meeting you, Naruto. They'll see each other again. See you soon. With these words, he turned and continued down the street. Naruto watched him go and thought, see you later? He was acting strangely. Sometime later, the schedule for the national mock exam was posted in the preparatory school auditorium. Ranzuki glanced at Naruto and asked, by the way, does he know anyone named Futano? At these words, Naruto flinched and dropped the documents. He asked, what? Ranzuki became worried. Is he okay? MC, hastily picking up the papers, awkwardly adjusted his glasses and apologized. He just didn't expect it. What was she talking about? Futano? She answered, yes, they go to the same school. He really stands out, so she thought maybe he knew him. Naruto visibly tensed up, but tried to speak calmly. No, he doesn't know. After all, he studies at school all the time. Ranzuki lowered her head, leaning on her hands and said, pity, she thought. Maybe. Naruto was wary. What was she thinking? An alarming thought immediately flashed through his mind. Had she suspected something? But Ranzuki only shrugged. Nothing. She was just curious to see what he was like. That's all. At that moment, the teacher entered the room and loudly commanded, let's begin. Naruto flinched slightly. Huh? What does she mean? Ranzuki replied, the exam is starting. They would talk later. The protagonist clenched his teeth. He needs to calm down. She didn't notice anything. For now. After that, the teacher commanded, start. Naruto clenched his teeth and thought, right now he must concentrate on the test. After a while, the teacher announced, time's up. Ranzuki stretched her whole body as if releasing tension and said, finally finished. She began to gather her things and glancing sideways at Naruto, asked, well Naruto, how was it? Did you write well? He too was putting notebooks in his bag and replied, so I guess. She said, it's already completely dark. We should hurry home. They went outside. Ranzuki looked at the protagonist and said, that long text in the middle has eaten up all her time. Naruto agreed. It had eaten up his time too. The questions were a little different from the previous exams. She added, these new types of questions are so difficult. He agreed with her. He had already started to strategize. At this rate, he wouldn't be able to answer everything. He needed to learn to choose questions based on their point value. He asked, maybe he should have just skipped that part. What did she think? He wanted to ask Ranzuki, but he didn't have time. A guy suddenly jumped out from behind the wall next to him, grabbed Ranzuki, and covered her mouth. He spun around, not immediately noticing Ranzuki, and shouted in surprise, Ranzuki? At the same moment, he noticed her bag thrown to the ground and his chest went cold. What? He had a bad feeling about this. He took off, running forward, mentally cursing himself. Damn it, why didn't he notice her sooner? He shouted. Why her of all people? After a while, he caught up with the group of hooligans and, out of breath from running in rage, shouted, there. Feng spun around, shouting in amazement. Naruto, what is he doing here? The protagonist rushed towards them, shouting as he ran. They. At that moment, Takeda, nearby, struggled to his feet, rubbing his nose. He muttered through his teeth. Damn, they weren't being polite at all, the idiots. He glanced at the few hooligans ahead and added darkly, bastards. Next time he sees them, they won't get off so easily. Then he looked ahead in surprise and asked, what? Meanwhile, Feng shouted to one of his comrades, He has to go around that way. They'll surround them. He got it. He froze for a second, taking in the situation, and then asked, seriously, what is Naritu doing here? No one said something like this could happen. His thoughts raced. They won't be able to carry out Mr. Inui's orders like this. Damn it. Is there anything he can do? Everything should be fine. I still have that trump card. He barked again. Hey guys, call Mr. Ken Onodera immediately. One of his henchmen asked in confusion. Mr. Onodera? They really have to call him over such a trivial matter? Feng howled with tension. He just has to call. They've been in a tough spot for a long time. Naritu is a dangerous guy. With these words, he rushed forward again. Takeda cautiously peeked around the corner and quietly muttered. These guys showed up just in time. And the protagonist, throwing his glasses aside, with a dull growl, hit the nearest bully in the face and barked. Out of the way! Get out! One of the guys, smirking, intercepted the bat and muttered. He wants to get past them? His partner chuckled. Too bad. They don't know who he is or where he's from, but he won't get past them. The protagonist clenched his fists and spat. Is he even in his right mind? And the bully asked, what? Was he scared? At that second, Ranzuki, noticing Naritu, screamed, Futano? At that moment, Feng roughly grabbed her arm, and the girl cried out in pain. The protagonist screamed, gritting his teeth. Let her go. He has to get his hands off her. The next second, someone jumped on him from behind, trying to knock him down, but at that very moment, a sharp kick landed in the attacker's face. The protagonist spun around, stunned, crying out, what the? And then he saw Takeda. He hung in the air in a spectacular jump, then landed with a dull thud and shouted loudly, help has arrived. The protagonist silently looked at him and thought, I thought he was supposed to be his next opponent. Takeda, in turn, glanced briefly at Naritu and silently noted, so this is Naritu? Not bad. Without wasting a second, Takeda rushed to attack. Naritu froze in surprise for only a split second. Takeda shouted as he ran, he's Naritu, right? The protagonist was surprised. So what? He replied. He doesn't fully understand what's going on here, but the main thing right now is to save that girl, right? With these words, he slammed his fist into the jaw of one of the hooligans and added, besides, these guys owe him something. It's time to return the favor. Let's go. He and Naritu clashed in a general fight. Takeda grabbed another opponent by the hair and, striking him again, shouted, take that, and one more, take that. Their fists flashed in the air. Blows rained down one after another. For a moment, the protagonist and Takeda's gazes met, and in that gaze, a silent understanding flashed. But then Fang, seeing that almost all of his guys had already fallen, abruptly put a knife to Ranzuki's neck and yelled, stop. Not a step closer. Otherwise, she will be left with scars that will never heal. Can they hear him? Ranzuki sobbed, tears rolling down her cheeks. Feng shouted, if they don't want this, they have to back off. Takeda froze and glanced briefly at the protagonist. He asked, hey, what now? Naritu frowned. It won't work. Feng grinned evilly. What was he mumbling? The protagonist muttered through clenched teeth. Just let him try. With a sharp movement, he threw the bat lying nearby into the air. Takeda immediately barked, don't move rashly. The next moment, Naritu swung his leg, and the bat crashed into the wall with a crash, literally a centimeter from Fang's head. He turned pale, convulsively clenching his teeth. Ranzuki, taking advantage of the momentary confusion, screamed piercingly. He has to let her go. She lunged forward, breaking free from Feng's grip, and ran away. Feng extended his hand with the knife, shouting, stop. The blade flashed forward. But at the same second, Naritu lunged and intercepted the hand, preventing the knife from reaching the girl. Ranzuki gasped in shock. Futano? Fen, trying to free his hand, yelled, let go. MC coldly snapped, enough. Stop this right now. And without giving his opponent a chance, he swung and delivered a crushing blow straight to Feng's face. He flew back and hit the wall with a dull thud, then slowly slid to the ground, going limp. Takeda, looking at this, thought, amazing. So it really is him, Naritu, the very person he was looking for. Naritu immediately rushed to Ranzuki and shouted, is she okay? The girl, sitting on the ground and breathing heavily, nodded, yes, my legs just gave way. Takeda said, we have to get out of here. Naritu nodded in agreement. He extended his hand to Ranzuki and said, come on, can she get up? He had barely finished speaking when he heard a sharp sound behind him. He turned around and saw that Takeda was no longer standing next to him but lying against the wall. He asked, what? He looked further and froze. Onodera was standing next to him, Shorin High School, first grade, second year. Onodera looked at him coldly and seriously. Suddenly, Takeda, despite the pain, jerked to his feet. Fury flashed in his eyes. His joints cracked as he straightened. He charged and shouted, how dare he do such a thing? Take that. He put all his strength into the punch, aiming at his opponent, but his fist only slammed dully into his opponent's torso, and Takeda froze, stunned. What the? The next second, Onodera raised his clenched fists high above his head and brought it down sharply. The protagonist extended his hand forward and shouted, no. Onodera's clenched fists fell with crushing force straight onto Takeda's head. Takeda fell to the ground and MC stared in surprise at Onodera, who swung his fist. Naritu quickly dodged and kicked him. He thought, this guy. Onodera grabbed his leg and swung it, throwing it aside. Ranzuki screamed in fear. Futano. MC got up and rushed to attack, clenching his fist. He punched Onodera in the face, who was about to strike back. He swung his leg, but Naritu responded in kind. He frowned, and Ranzuki screamed in fear, "Futano, we need to give this man first aid immediately." He turned around, and Onodera clenched his fist and prepared to attack. MC jumped to the side and grabbed Takeda's body over his shoulders. He turned around and ordered Ranzuki to run. She replied, "Yes." Onodera looked after them and remained silent. After a while, the traffic light turned red and Naritu screamed, "Nightmare." He heard a voice behind him. "Naritu?" He turned around, and Matsuda said, "So it really was him." Ranzuki asked again, "What? What did he say?" Matsuda asked to wait and asked, "Is it Takeda? What happened?" Naritu frowned and said, "A lot happened. No time to tell." Matsuda took out his phone and said, "He is seriously injured. We need to call an ambulance." Kiritani stopped the car and said, "No, it will be faster this way." He said to get in. MC looked at him in surprise and said, "Yes." They got into a taxi and left, and the guys were left standing on the street. After a while, at the Central City Hospital, everyone was sitting on a bench near the office. MC lowered his head and thought, "This guy. Are there really many people like him around? Or is he the one who often gets into fights lately? At this rate, he will be completely sucked into this life. If so, then he should." He stood up abruptly and said, "He leaves everything to them from now on." Ranzuki screamed, "What? He's going home? He can't leave like this, Futano." Naritu turned around and asked, "Why him?" Ranzuki replied, "No, that won't do. He has to make sure his friend is okay." MC frowned and asked again, "His friend?" Kiritani chuckled and MC said, "No, he's not." At that moment, Takeda came out of the room and sighed loudly. Everyone turned around and shouted, "Takeda, is he okay?" He smiled and thanked them for helping him out, especially Naritu. MC turned around in fear and looked at Ranzuki. He grabbed Takeda's hand and asked, "What?" Naritu dragged him aside and told the guys to follow him. Now, he grabbed them all and whispered, asking them not to set him up. "He's Futano now. No need to call him by his real name." The guys were forced to acknowledge him as Futano. Ranzuki asked, "Futano? Is he okay?" MC smiled and turned around and apologized. He said yes, he just needed to talk to them. Matsuda asked, "But who beat Takeda to that state anyway?" He closed his eyes and answered, "It was Onodera." "Ken Onodera?" Matsuda asked again. "Onodera?" He took out his diary and said, "Mr. Onodera, huh?" He remembered. He's the right-hand man who's always by Mr. Inui's side. He opened his diary entry and it said, "Second year, first class, Ken Onodera. Last year's freshman war champion. He rarely appears in public, but there are rumors that he hangs out with Inui and the upperclassmen. He's big and muscular, won his last fight by a landslide, and usually defeats his opponents with one punch." Matsuda said he's secretive, and he doesn't seem like the type to openly get into fights, so there's little information available. Takeda walked up to him and asked, "Did he write all of this himself? This is awesome." Matsuda let out a loud yelp, and Takeda said, "He loves hearing about bad guys like that. What they did, who they beat up, everything." Matsuda replied, "He does too. He loves legends and stories about them. He also has a ton of similar manga. They're like kindred spirits." Matsuda yelped, "Yeah, they're on the same wavelength." MC frowned and thought, he wants to go home. Takeda asked, "But why was Kade targeted? Is there a reason why someone kidnapped her? It doesn't seem like she's connected to those guys as far as he can tell." Ranzuki lowered her head and replied, "She doesn't know. She has no idea." Takeda said, "That guy just appeared out of nowhere. Something must have happened. Onodera can't be behind this." But he still let them go in the end. What was he even trying to achieve? Kiritani asked. "By the way, why did he team up with Futano? Did he just want to help him?" Takeda chuckled and told him not to talk nonsense. He had a small skirmish with those guys recently before. MC asked, "Did he get this wound back then? Is that right?" Takeda answered, "Yes, that's right. Inui and his guys attacked him." Matsuda screamed, "Seriously?" Takeda asked not to misunderstand. One-on-one, he wouldn't have been a problem, but he made one mistake and let his guard down. Naritu asked why they attacked him in the first place. Takeda replied, he rejected their offer to join their group. He thinks it was the Dragon Alliance. Kiritani dropped his lollipop and said, "Dragon Alliance." He just said it. He grabbed Takeda by the shirt and yelled, "He just said Dragon Alliance." Takeda asked, puzzled, what happened to him suddenly? Did something happen? Kiritani asked to be excused, but he needed to ask something. "So Inui is connected with them?" Takeda said, "Probably." He'd only heard rumors, especially that he's recruiting people who became famous in the freshman war. He's not really interested in joining their gang though. He just wants to test his strength, that's all. Futano, he's also participating in the freshman war, so it's not just his problem. Kiritani, if he's looking for Inui, he just needs to find the guy in the purple jacket. He always wears the same jacket. It's his calling card. Kiritani turned away and said, "I see, thank you." Takeda replied, "Yes, the freshman war, yes." After a while, Kiritani was sitting at the computer. He turned on a video from which voices and laughter were heard. He zoomed in and saw Inui. Kiritani said, "Purple jacket, so it's Inui." After a while, Matsuda opened his diary and said, the next fight was supposed to be with Takeda, but it looks like he withdrew due to his injuries. He closed the diary and sighed. MC was thoughtfully writing something in his notebook and thinking, great, he managed to avoid a fight, but maybe he should withdraw too. A guy came into the room and asked, "Is Naritu here?" Yui Ikeda from Shoran High School, first year, class 8th, smirked and looked at him. Matsuda cried out in surprise, "It's Ikeda!" MC looked at him and said, "Ikeda?" Matsuda said, "It's the guy who used to be super popular in boxing. He's his opponent in the finals." Naritu thought, right? He saw his name in the tournament bracket. Yui said, the smart guy with glasses. So it's Niritu. Seriously, he looks so smart. He ordered them to listen. Yui asked a question. He only defeated one guy in the freshman war, right? And the one he defeated was this guy, right? He threw Reima into the room, which caused questions from the guys. Yui kicked Reima and said, well, he congratulates him on reaching the finals. But honestly, this guy is very weak. He lost, but he still acts arrogant. So he gave him a little lesson. So Niritu, doesn't he want to teach some of the guys a lesson too? That's just how their school is set up. Reima said, Yui cried out in irritation. What? Looks like he still needs some work. Let him see. He charges tuition. Okay, he'll give him a lecture from Ikeda. He grabbed Reima by the chain around his neck and said, just in case, private lessons are expensive. Matsuda got scared and Yui cried out, everyone's attention. All the students looked at him and he screamed, this is what losing looks like. And this is how victory is signified. He punched Reima and screamed loudly. He hates people like that, who act so arrogant. They act tough when they're actually very weak. Whatever happens to that guy now, he will always be the one who loses. Losers must crawl. Does he understand? Yui swung his leg when suddenly MC blocked his punch and Yui said, Niritu looked at his wristwatch and said, it's already the start of class. Yui clenched his fist and shouted, his lesson isn't over yet. A shout rang out, Niritu. MC turned around and quickly blocked the punch. Yui frowned and said, and pulled his hand away and ordered him to move out of the way. Matsuda asked, Niritu, is he okay? MC replied, it's okay. The main thing is that class is about to start. Matsuda said happily. As always, he doesn't change. Sometime later in the boxing gym, Yui was training, hitting a punching bag. He remembered MC's words and thought, he intercepted it like it was nothing. And that look, he's mocking him. He will make him regret it for sure. On the day of the final match of the Shoran High School Freshman War, a shout was heard. Niritu, Matsuda approached him and asked, what? He's leaving already? Today is the finals of the Freshman War. Niritu said that's right. He was thinking about it since Takeda was able to withdraw from the competition. Maybe he could too. Matsuda screamed, but Takeda had a good reason. He got hurt in the skirmish. Usually the losing classes get punished as the loser class. MC said, even if that's true, those two cases were unavoidable circumstances. Now the situation is completely different. Kiritani entered the office and said he had a proposal. Can he wait a little? He asked to be forgiven, but they need him to participate in the finals. Does he remember a guy named Inui? Niritu said he thought Takeda mentioned him. Kiritani said he wants to find him. They say he always comes to watch the freshman war, so they need him to win the fight. MC frowned and asked, does he want him to fight that guy? It's none of his business. Kiritani said that way they can get information and find out why they attacked Ranzuki. He remained silent, then smirked and said, besides, if he wins the freshman war, guys like Yui, who start fights, will leave him alone. And besides, he will become an authority among the freshmen. He will be able to make them be more diligent. What does he think? He thinks this is a good offer for him. MC looked at him carefully, then sighed and said, but only on the condition that they find out exactly why they attacked Ranzuki, okay? Kiritani said yes, if they can follow the trail. To do that, they need to get close to Inui. Niritu thought, such a sudden kidnapping. He can't let this happen again. This is the second time she's contacted these guys. If this continues, others might get hurt. They have to prevent this in the future. Kiritani said Inui doesn't usually act so openly. They say the initial attack on Takeda was part of a recruitment attempt, so he'll definitely show up. Please, Niritu, he needs to go out and try to win. After a while, he walked out to the center of the Shoran High School courtyard. Saki looked out the window and said, look, there he is. Something interesting is expected. He advanced to the next round due to his opponent's withdrawal. But is he really strong? Naramiya said, who knows? Bets were being taken on the fight in the courtyard, and the students had already prepared to watch the fight. MC thought, these looks are just killing me. His friends were supporting him, and he understood that now he had no way back. Yui walked out onto the field and called out to Niritu. In response, he just frowned, and Yui laughed and asked, he's ignoring him, right? MC thought this is not just a fight for him. A guy came forward and said he will be the referee. Azaki, a second year. Niritu thought this is a battle for the safety of their future. For this, he will do everything possible. Yui frowned and said he will grind him into dust. Azaki swung his hand and shouted, and so, get ready. Freshman War, the final match. MC thought the operation begins. Azaki shouted, start. Yui tried to attack MC, but he sharply dodged. He ducked, and Yui thought he caught him. He hit MC, but he did a backflip. Yui screamed, what? He thought the guy has been dodging like this from the beginning? Boxing is clearly not for him. He said he never expected that he would dodge from such a position. It turns out he can move up and down. But what about side to side? Niritu dodged again, and Yui chuckled and said, that's not bad, but it will end too quickly, boring. And he's fast. He moves like that because he sees his punches. Yui sked and said he's ignoring him. That's why nerds are so boring. MC said discontentedly, he talks too much. At this time, Shoran High School, outer corridor. Kiritani ran down the corridor and thought, even if Niritu delayed the fight for him, it would be 30 minutes at most. He needed to figure this out before then. He started looking around and thought, isn't this Inui? He heard Inui has a huge ego. He wants to recruit people. Would someone who acts like a leader really hang around among the students? No, Onodera. Right, maybe he's with that big guy. He should find him immediately. They're probably somewhere quiet with a good image. He looked at the roof of the school and thought, over there. Yui swung his fist and ordered take it. He thinks he can win if he keeps dodging forever? Or is he just not able to do anything anymore? MC frowned and thought, is he getting tired? His punches seem lighter than he expected. He would rather not keep taking these punches. Yui started attacking again, but MC blocked every punch. He thought, he is so easy with his bare hands. Why? If he can do this, why did he keep dodging? He turned to Naruto and said, he dodged at the last second on purpose to make him throw more punches. He is infuriating him. This is the first time he's being treated like a jerk. He may be skillful, and also the type of person who wins by thinking in the ring. But he is a knockout master. He swung and thought, he can do it. He just dodges without landing the finishing throw. So he will punch until he is exhausted. If he can land a powerful punch at the end, then he can win. Naruto dodged and thought, what? He missed on purpose? Or are his legs giving out? What was that? What if he had hit him just now? If he had hit him, Yui screamed, what's going on? What did his master teach him? For him to do nothing but run away. MC asked, what did he say? He always followed his father's lessons. Yui asked again, his father's lessons? 8 years ago a voice was heard in Naruto's house. Yes, the key is to keep your body's axis stable. He needs to extend his leg more. Naruto asked, like this? Hanamichi laughed and said, great, that's just great. Then he throws his fist forward. Mom was watching them from the window and ordered them not to teach him anything dangerous. Father smiled and said, this is karate training. Megumi asked, really? Hanamichi screamed, really, really? She replied, well, okay then. But you don't need to teach him to fight, okay? Father replied, he knows. MC asked, is he not allowed to fight? Hanamichi replied, no, it's not that he can't. Mom just doesn't want him to get into fights. So maybe it's better not to do it in front of her. But he has to be able to protect himself and those he cares about. He doesn't think so? Naruto replied, he thinks so. His father cried out happily, oh yeah, that's the mood. MC said he wants to get stronger. He will protect mom and dad. Hanamichi said, okay, he gets it. Well, as a father he can't refuse his son when he asks him to. The most important thing is to constantly and improve. Make it a habit, okay? After all, the one who continues the longest will become the strongest. Can he do it? Naruto shouted. He can. He can. His father extended his little finger and said, okay. He asked him to swear. Yui asked again, is he just following his father's instructions? He laughed and asked, is he stupid or what? So it turns out he's just been his parents' puppet all his life. MC frowned and replied, he didn't think he'd said anything deserving of ridicule. Yui grabbed his head and said, this is hilarious. Just ridiculous. So he is a good boy and a nerd after all. He clenched his fist and rushed to attack, and MC dodged and thought, what? His speed suddenly. Yui swung his fists, but Naruto dodged. He imagined a man standing behind him and saying, Dad's puppet, yes. When he gets angry, he immediately starts swinging indiscriminately. Yui clicked his tongue in displeasure and shouted, he won't forgive him. He can't lose to him. There's no way he'll lose to a trained dog that obediently followed its old man. MC thought, what's this all of a sudden? His movements were becoming wider than before, but if he keeps dodging, his stamina will only decrease. I wonder if Kiritani has already found him. At that moment, Inui and Onodera were standing on the roof of Shoran High School. Inui said, yes, the outcome of this fight is already a foregone conclusion. As he said, this Naruto is really good. It was worth coming again to see everything with my own eyes. Onodera said, as for Ikeda, something is clearly wrong with that guy. His incomprehensible pride and lack of skill make him a simple opponent. He would be a burden within the organization. Inui said, he is no good even as cannon fodder. There is no way he will obediently submit. Well, he has seen enough. Suddenly, they stopped when they saw Kiritani. At that time, Yui swung his fist and cried out, Someone asked, shouldn't Ikeda win if his opponent just runs away? He is not just dodging. This is not child's play. Let him do like that time when Miyamoto won. Matsuda turned around and said, maybe he should finish already. Takeda grabbed his head and ordered him to shut up. Naruto has his own plan of action, although they won't achieve anything like this. What is he going to do, Naruto? The MC frowned and said, the audience is getting louder. Enough time should have passed by now. He did his job. Holding him back any longer is dangerous. He just has to attack him. He mentally apologized to Kiritani, but he has to end the fight now. Yui chuckled and said, he should be participating in the pissing off championship, not the freshman war. Seriously. But he's finally really gotten down to business. Well then, he'll drive even harder than before. Besides, he can only prove his point by defeating him. Naruto said, he wants to ask him, why should he prove that he's the strongest instead of properly honing his skills and helping others? Yui froze from the unexpected answer, and Naruto said, it seems like he's desperately doing this for something. Yui's eyes widened in fear and he said, he loved watching his old man fight. When he was 7 years old, he would watch a fight and say, it's so cool. He sincerely wanted to be like him, with all his heart. After a while, the coach said, guys, this is Ikeda. He'll be joining them today. He offered to support him however they could. The guys rushed to him and started asking, his father, is this Ikeda Hayato? Of course. Suddenly a voice rang out, and what did they see in him? Yui looked at him in surprise, and the guy turned around and said, his old man is always second. He's just a loser. Yui frowned and said, the guy asked, He wants to wrestle? The boy ordered him to stop. He just arrived. Yui ordered him to shut up. He started fighting the guy, and after a while, he came home beaten. The former number 2 ranked lightweight champion in Japan, Ikeda Hayato, turned around and greeted him. He said he cooked his favorite hamburger today. They sat down at the table, and Yui said they started saying nasty things about him, and he got angry. His father laughed and said, I understand. He felt bad. Yui looked at him questioningly and asked why he was so surprised, Dad. Hayato answered because he was not number 1, and he thought that because of him, he had to embarrass himself. Yui stood up and shouted, That's not true. Dad, he's just super. He will definitely become number 1 someday. He believes in him. Hayato smiled and said, he understood. That would be good. Yui asked his father to teach him boxing too. He definitely wants to become stronger than these guys. Hayato frowned and said, that's possible, of course, but he doesn't want him to make getting stronger the only goal. Yui looked at him questioningly, and Hayato replied, if he only thinks about getting stronger, in the end, he won't become one. Yui looked at him questioningly, and Hayato said, well, he'll understand it someday. In the end, he still couldn't grasp the meaning of those words. A fight for the Eastern Pacific Boxing Federation lightweight title. The final. Hayato fell to the floor, and people shouted, let him quit already, old man. This is a pathetic sight. The guy folded his arms and asked, he's already exhausted, isn't he? Sand is already pouring off him. Yui looked at him displeased, and the guy screamed. A few days later, Ikeda Yui during his middle school days. He came home, and his father said dinner was ready. Yui snapped, he won't. If he eats the same food as him, he won't be able to win where he wants to. Hayato looked after him sadly. After a while, a voice rang out in the boxing ring. The winner, Ikeda Yui, we need to meet their new champion. He is the winner. He's not like Dad. That's exactly what he thought. And yet, after a while, he lost and thought, what? The voice said, an incredibly talented rookie. A new legend was born in this ring. Yui thought, why him? Why is he lying down? The host said, another promising rookie showing his talent. Yui was sitting on the bed and watching the report. Dad came into the room with a tray and said, dinner. Yui turned away and said, no need. Hayato said, you can't become strong if you don't eat. Yui screamed, what? Then why did he lose? Hayato said, he watched today's fight. He gets angry quickly. When he gets angry, he immediately starts waving his arms. He told him this all the time. No need to be arrogant and give in to emotions. His talent is undeniable. But his heart. Yui told him to shut up. Besides, he only lost once. Don't confuse him with him. He's the eternal number 2, a weakling. After that, he didn't care anymore. He gave up that terrible sport called boxing. Instead, he spent his days fighting. A world without rules and judges was meaningless. But that's what gave him a little peace. After a while at the police station, his father shouted, why did he do that? Yui replied, it's all his fault. Hayato asked, what did he say? Yui said, because it's all in his genes. Because of him, he has to listen to ridicule too. But that's not true. Yui shouted, if he were strong, this wouldn't be true. That's not true. That's not what he wants to say. Hayato punched him in the face, and Yui thought his father told him to do what he wants. He turned around and started to leave. Yui thought, he won't be accepted anywhere after all the trouble he caused. And he didn't notice how he ended up in Shoran. It was the only place he could go, but it turned out to be very cozy here. It's okay to be strong. It's okay to be so fierce. As expected, fighting suits him the most. This is where he can prove his strength, or so he thought. His thoughts were interrupted by MC's punch. He grabbed his cheek and looked at him questioningly. Naritu said, he doesn't know what he's thinking, but a fist swung just for oneself only brings pain. Kiritani shouted joyfully, Naritu, he needs to try to go all the way. MC turned around and thought, Kiritani, he caught Inui. In that case, he just needs to finish this fight quickly. He went forward and quickly punched Yui. He fell to the ground and thought, what happened? Why is he lying down? Did he lose? To the guy who obediently follows his old man? Him. If he's the strongest, then his genes must be the strongest too. He will prove it. That's what he had to say. The boys looked at each other and screamed. They did it. The students screamed, amazing. This guy is incredible. Saki said with one punch. MC laughed and thought, he thinks he overdid it. Now because of Kiritani's request, he attracted too much attention. Yui got up from the ground and turned around with a loud click. He was leaving and thinking, even now he is second again. Matsuda joyfully shouted, Naritu, this is amazing. This is unbelievable. He won. MC turned around and said, he won. He shouted, he won. Come to think of it, it's true. Kiritani said, he worked hard. Naritu put his hands on his shoulders and asked, everything will be okay now, right? Now he can study in peace? Kiritani answered, yes, everything should be okay now. The students were whispering among themselves, did they see that punch? Now that guy, he is the ringleader of all the first years. Kiritani sighed and said, well, at least among the first years he should be safe. Although you can't guarantee the rest. Matsuda asked, by the way, what about that matter? Kiritani looked at him questioningly, and then answered with this, there probably won't be a harvest. He's sorry it turned out this way. Matsuda replied, I see. It's not that easy, right? Kiritani replied, no, but it's too early for the harvest. 20 minutes ago, on the roof of the main building of Shoran High School, he said he finally found it. He said hello and asked, are they probably their upperclassmen, Inui and Onodera, right? He's so glad to meet such celebrities. He was looking for the two of them today because he wants to discuss something. He's certainly not very strong, but he's very confident in his brains. Anyway, the guys passed by him, and he said he'd heard a lot about their work. He fell silent and then said they didn't invite him. I see. Then he'd like to invite them to his place. Well, how about that? Currently, the guys were walking down the street and Takeda turned to Kiritani. He heard from Matsuda that Anyway, why is he so fixated on Inui? Is it true that he deliberately made Naritu drag out the fight? Kiritani pointed his finger at Matsuda and said, Matsuda, he's such a chatterbox. Matsuda apologized, but he thought he should tell him because... He hesitated a bit and said, they're friends. Kiritani asked again, friends? Yes, he really thinks so? And what does he think, Naritu? MC said, It depends on the definition of the word friend. Takeda ordered Kiritani to stick to the topic. Let him tell everything already. Kiritani said, Inui attacked him and the girl from Naritu's cram school, right? It's clearly related. It's better to gather information, right? Takeda said, no, he's asking him to explain why he's so proactive in this matter. Doesn't it concern him in any way, or does it? MC said, not interested. He personally doesn't care. Takeda cried out, what? Naritu, wasn't he forced to fight in vain back then? MC replied, it wasn't all in vain. The fight with Ikeda was meaningful from start to finish. Takeda stopped, then swung his crutch forward. He screamed, oh my god. He couldn't get the conversation started properly. Anyway, he has a childhood friend from Teikoku, Musarase Yuji, and he wants to help him. MC asked again, Teikoku? Matsuda replied, Teikoku Academy. It's a school for problem students in the neighboring town that rivals Shoran. Kiritani asked, so why did he suddenly want to help his childhood friend? Is he related to Inui? Takeda held out his phone and told him to look. This Inui dude makes videos of guys he dumped beating up students from other schools. Then he blackmails them with these videos. If he goes to Shoran, he should understand the situation, right? If this leaks online, a war will start between Shoran and Teikoku. Naturally, Yuji will become a target for Shoran, and he will also be persecuted in Teikoku as the culprit of the war. His goal is to force him to completely delete this video. Only Inui and Yuji have this video. He received his copy from Yuji. Kiritani said that he wants to crush Inui, understandably. Takeda replied, yes, Kiritani is not his enemy. Their goals are the same. Kiritani said, I see. He asked for forgiveness. He's the type to keep a clear separation between work and his personal life. But if a trump card named Naritu joins them, that's a different matter. MC's eyes widened in surprise and asked, get involved in another fight? He thought. Honestly, he doesn't want to do that. But if Inui was involved in the last kidnapping incident, he frowned and said, Kiritani, if they just deal with this Inui, then things like involving Ranzuki won't happen again, right? Kiritani replied, well, yeah, but he doesn't give any guarantees. MC said, fine, if he assured him 100%, he would start to suspect him. He will cooperate, but this isn't a fight. This is self-defense. To never involve his friends from cram school in this again. Matsuda asked, what is he like, this childhood friend of his whom he wants to help? MC thought, he's sure he's 9 out of 10. A typical bully. Takeda said, that guy. Some time ago there was a scream, Katsu. 5 years ago, Yodo Elementary School, Hinamichi Ward. Takeda covered the boy with his body and ordered him to stop. This is Murase Yuji's childhood. He cried and said, Katsu. Takeda turned around and said, it's okay. He's strong after all. Guys like him can make others obey. He swung his hand and said, but being a victim, that's a nightmare. You don't have to do that. Takeda hit the guy and Yuji screamed. Cool. Currently, Takeda said, he was defending the guy who was being bullied. But later, they went to different schools. In the past, Yuji snatched the guy's wallet and asked, does he have any more money? The guy said, please stop, he has nothing else. Yuji said, well, okay, at least he's at the top now, and he's at the bottom. Did he get it? Takeda saw this and ordered him to stop. Yuji smiled and said, Katsu. Takeda asked, what is he doing? Yuji asked again, is this? Takeda screamed, he told you to stop doing such things. He ordered the money back. Yuji replied, okay, no need to be so angry. Takeda said, Yuji, stop doing such terrible nonsense. He asked not to make him repeat it several times. Yuji said, he got it. Besides, he had already finished, and he, Katsu, was clearly superior to him, right? Takeda looked at him puzzled and Yuji asked, guys with strength, that's cool, right? He always wanted to be like him, Katsu. Takeda thought, where did he go wrong with him? Yuji didn't have any malicious intent, or was it an oversight on his part? He's stupid, so he doesn't quite understand. But if this is the result of what he told him, then it's his job to bring him to his senses. After a while, Takeda walked into the school and cried out. Matsuda said, good morning. He looked towards the students on the stairs and said, what an assertive look. Takeda said, well, it's been 2 days already. It's natural for the champion to be paid attention to. MC looked away and then asked, are they currently gathering information about Inui and his entourage? Maybe he found out about them? Takeda said, he's the best freshman now. It's natural for them to pay attention to him. They started climbing the stairs and MC said, he doesn't like all this. Takeda said, he could use his current position to his advantage. He didn't know why he wasn't using it, although of course it's his business. But still, his own goal or pride? Maybe he needs to prioritize and decide what's more important to him, Naritu said. That's right. Takeda waved and said, see you later. Matsuda said, yeah. The guys entered the office, where the students were looking at them with displeasure. MC asked, what? Ren pointed his finger forward and shouted, Naritu, him! MC flinched and wondered if they really wanted to again. The guys put their hands on his shoulders and asked where he disappeared to yesterday. MC looked at them in surprise, and Ren said, "This is a victory party." Niritu asked again, "A party?" Ken screamed, "Of course. His victory is the victory of the whole class." MC thought, he seemed to have mentioned something like this once. Ren said, "Well, okay. Thanks to him they can all walk with their heads held high, right?" The guy said if he had any questions they would be happy to answer him. MC said in surprise, "Questions? Then he would like to know something." After a while, Reima turned around in fear and asked, "Niritu?" MC came out from around the corner and said, "Miyamoto." Some time ago, Ren said, "Inui." Ha. Ken said he was Miyamoto's first opponent. MC said he wanted to ask him something. Reima asked what it was. The guys went to the side, which Yui noticed and frowned. He thought, what is he planning? The guys went outside, and Reima looked around and thought he brought him to a deserted place. Is he going to beat him up? MC turned around and asked, "What happened?" "Come on." Reima answered, "Okay." He grabbed his chain in fear and thought, this is terrible. Why did he decide to drag such a weakling like him along with him? Everyone probably thinks that he will get beaten up. Niritu said, he heard something. Is it true that he was recruited by an upperclassman named Inui? Rima asked, how does he know? MC ordered him to just tell him. Rima looked away in fear and asked, what if he doesn't say anything? They came here to beat him up and force him to talk, right? MC said, he would never do such a thing. Rima asked, what? Niritu said, if he really doesn't want to talk, it's not necessary now. Rima asked, then why come here at all? MC replied that in case he felt uncomfortable speaking in front of everyone, he thought it would be better to bring him here. He thought, and besides, they don't want to spread important information. Reima lowered his head and said he was the biggest loser in the freshman war, so he can just give him orders. MC said he didn't care about such things. If he can't say, he won't ask. And that was it. Reima said he was indebted to him. MC looked at him in surprise, and Reima yelped. After all, he helped him when Ikeda beat him up, so he'll at least repay the debt he owed him a little. He asked if Inui recruited him, right? Niritu replied, yes. Reima said that's right. He went to their gatherings. It's a club that Inui often uses as a base. If he goes there, he can probably find it. MC asked again, some club? Kiritani came up from behind and said that's very good information. Reima looked at him puzzled and Kiritani waved his hand. MC asked Kiritani, since when? Kiritani asked, okay, it's okay, right? He was going to share it with him anyway, right? Reima asked, what is he, anyway? Kiritani interrupted him and told him to be quiet. If he makes noise, people will come running. He knows Inui's contact information, right? Reima asked, so what does it matter to him? Kiritani asked, can he send it to him then? Makoto Niritu says he wants to join the Dorakengumi. That's it. After a while, Inui received this message on his phone and he looked at his phone screen. Music was playing in the club. People were dancing and relaxing. MC sat and thought, how did this come about? 2 hours ago, Kiritani asked so he can send it to him? Niritu asked to wait. What is he doing without asking? Kiritani said, he already contacted Takeda, so it's time for them to go to a meeting about their new strategy. At the moment, MC was worried and thinking, but still, such a sudden infiltration. Rui came up to him from behind and asked, isn't he Niritu? That's right, Niritu, and he looks completely different. This isn't human muscle strength. Is he a model student? MC looked at him in fear and thought, Narumiya? What is he doing here? This is bad. It can't be said that he is on a mission to infiltrate a dangerous group. Niritu adjusted his hair, sighed and said, well, sometimes you need to relax. Rui sat down next to him and said, resting is of course important, but would an excellent student spend his free time in such a place? MC asked. He would also like to know that from him. Narumiya? He answered, that's right. Yes, perhaps in that sense he is the same. MC laughed and Rui said, but his presence here is a little different from his. This place is in some way his refuge. He understands. Niritu frowned and thought, refuge? Here? Narumiya, he definitely is. At that moment, Matsuda was standing near the toilets and saying, there are so many scary people here. The atmosphere is even worse than in Shorin. They are not the kind of hooligans he likes. A shout came from behind the door. Is he an idiot? That's not how they collect money. Inadequate. Matsuda looked into the room and saw Inui, who was sitting on the couch and shouting, why is everyone here such an idiot? He said to calm down. Stupid people are easier to take advantage of. Matsuda thought, here it is. He picked up the phone and said, Takeda. A voice came from the other end of the call. Matsuda, what's wrong? Matsuda said, he found Inui. His room is there. A guy came up to him from behind and asked, what is he doing? Idiot? Matsuda turned around in fear, and a voice came from the phone. Is he okay, Matsuda? Let him answer him. The phone fell to the floor, and Takeda started to run. He opened the door and shouted, Matsuda! He saw the guys, and the beaten Matsuda turned around and said, Takeda. He clenched his fist and said irritably, you idiot. With the help of fake people, he uses other people's fists to poison his friend. He offered Inui a one-on-one fight. Inui stood up and said, he's stupid. Who even does that anymore? Takeda frowned and asked, what did he say? His way is much worse. If he uses his fists, he feels pain too. That means it means something to him. But he continues to injure people with other people's hands. Inui asked, does that mean he can't understand someone else's pain until he experiences it himself? He chuckled and said, he's really stupid, dude. That's why he lost to him before. A guy who doesn't know how to use people will never win in numbers. In other words, he's a weakling. Takeda said, he's a complete idiot. Inui replied, it's better to be an idiot than stupid. The proof is this guy. He's absolutely useless. The guard hit Matsuda in the stomach and he screamed. Takeda screamed in fear. Matsuda, stop. Inui said he can only ignore everyone. That's why he's a weakling. Takeda ordered to let him go. Matsuda said, Takeda, go ahead. If he lets him go now, that man will never come here again. If that happens, more people will suffer. The guy ordered him to shut up. Matsuda screamed, go ahead. He will deal with that man here and… The guy squeezed his neck and Takeda said, he's cool, Matsuda. Much cooler than any other problem teenager in this world. But let him forgive. He can't abandon him. He quickly rushed to attack, and the guy ordered him to stop. Takeda asked for forgiveness. He will find Inui and help Matsuda, so his presence here is bothering him. He hit the guy and thanked his friend. Matsuda happily said, yes, go ahead. At that moment, Inui ran out of the room and called someone. They asked him, what happened? He screamed, an annoying guy is chasing him. Let him help. At that moment, MC was sitting on the couch next to Rui. MC looked to the side and saw Takeda. He stood up and said, Takeda. Rui put his palm on his hand and said, they were just getting started. There's no need to leave him alone. Niritu asked for forgiveness, but he had to go. Rui asked, where to? He just arrived. He pulled him towards himself, and MC widened his eyes in confusion. Rui said he had been thinking about it since their last meeting. His body and arms are clearly not just pumped up, right? He heard he was very strong. In other words, he was clearly not trained for picking flowers. MC pulled his hand away and thought, where did he come from? He said, none of his business. He apologized and said he was in a hurry. Rui smirked and said, apparently, it was difficult for him to confess. At that moment, Yui looked at the building and thought, Niritu entered here. He looked thoughtfully at the entering couple and said, this looks like a boring place. At that moment, Takeda ran out of the building and bumped into them and apologized. The man asked, what kind of crazy person is this? Yui said, something interesting is about to start. Takeda ran forward, when suddenly he slowed down and said, nightmare. Where did he go? Matsuda ran after him and said, Takeda. He turned around and yelled, Matsuda, what is he doing here? Matsuda yelled, not there, here. So he threw that trash around to trick him. Takeda turned around and said, yes, it looks like he threw it around on purpose. So he's trying to lure him here? Well done, Matsuda. Thank you. Matsuda laughed lightly in response and they ran forward. Takeda yelled, let him wait for him, Inui. They found him near the trash can with a cigarette in his hand and said, they cornered him. Idiot. Inui laughed and asked, they cornered him? Would they even think for a second? It seems they have no brains at all. The guys turned around and saw Onodera. Inui put out his cigarette, saying, a cornered mouse may bite a cat, but that's just a saying, Takeda. They guys are just prey, idiots. Onodera swung his fist and hit Takeda. Matsuda asked to forgive him. Takeda said, they need to deal with this guy first. Otherwise, they will not move forward. His strength is no joke. Even when he tried to break through head-on, he did not flinch. They will not be able to defeat him until they come up with something. This is not really his style, but Matsuda, can he help him? He replied, yes, he will try his best. Takeda ordered him to aim for the legs. He does not perceive him as a threat. Matsuda asked, does he want to set him up as bait? Takeda replied, no, he will be the bait. Matsuda asked, is that really it? He remembered a moment from the manga and cried out, the Crow Brothers' strategy? Takeda grinned and said, as expected. Can he do it? Matsuda replied, he will. Takeda frowned and thought, honestly, Matsuda's strength may not be enough, but they have no choice but to rely on his tenacity. He ran forward and shouted, here we go. Inui laughed and said, they're idiots. Takeda ran past Onodera, who looked after him, puzzled. Inui ordered him to stop. Onodera extended his hand towards Takeda. Matsuda thought, they'll do it. He believes in them. He screamed loudly and grabbed Onodera by the leg. He said, don't move. Onodera wanted to throw him off and started swinging his leg. Takeda screamed, good job, Matsuda. He ran up to Onodera and kicked him in the legs. He screamed loudly and Takeda said, now. He hit him in the face and thought he's caught. Takeda asked in surprise, what? He suddenly kicked and headbutted him. Idiot. Onodera grabbed his leg and Takeda ordered him to stop. He threw him aside and the guys screamed. Matsuda asked for forgiveness. Inui said, they never had a chance to win from the start. He told you so, right? They're just prey. Takeda said, what a nightmare. He thought, how pathetic. He asked Matsuda for help and still ended up in this situation. What a nightmare. He took more hits than he thought. His body is so heavy. Onodera stood over them like a rock when suddenly a voice came from behind him. This is an interesting game. Can he join in? Yui started warming up and said, this way he can earn his debt to Niritu. This is perfect bait for a rematch. Yui began to laugh enthusiastically and told Matsuda to get out of there. Otherwise he was getting in the way. Takeda also told him to leave. Matsuda wanted to object and then Yui started shouting. Matsuda got up and started running, crying from resentment at himself. He couldn't help them in any way, but he would definitely bring him here. Inui called out to Yui and asked what he was doing. He shouldn't show off. He smiled, saying that he just wanted to show off. Thanks to them, he now had a chance to make a beautiful comeback. Inui told him not to make fun of him. First he would deal with that idiot and give him a good beating. After that, a fight broke out. Takeda lunged at Inui and he chuckled, pulled a baton from his sleeve and hit the guy in the face. Takeda in a rage called him an idiot. Is he still using dirty tricks? Inui asked. Why is he still talking about it? If he's a bully, everything around him is a weapon, even if he's human. Realizing who he was talking about, Takeda said he would never forgive him. He simply wasn't meant to change. He ran at him, and Inui exclaimed in response that he didn't need to change. Meanwhile, Yui smiled and said he understood everything. In other words, he just needed to crush this big guy. Immediately after that, he punched Onodera in the face. He staggered, but stood his ground. He's a pretty tough guy. Yui said, the harder something is, the more fragile it actually is. He'll smash his body. He pounced on him with his fists. Onodera went on the defensive, and while Yui was throwing punches, he shouted, as long as he's human, damage accumulates. He was distracted, and Onodera took advantage of this and hit him with all his might in the crook of his elbow. Yui cursed and retreated, while Inui struck him with his club and said, "The other guy seems to be in a tough spot too." They say that on the battlefield, spears were mightier than swords. When it comes down to it, the one who can stay farther from his opponent wins the fight. He struck again, saying that they had no time to rest, and then kneed him in the stomach, causing him to fall. Inui said that his fatal mistake was his lack of weapons, determination, and preparation. His opponent was nice and proper before the freshman war. Let him learn what bullies really are and leave all his dreams here. Takeda stood up, calling him a petty crook. What was that? He's a brat who wants to become prime minister. It would have been better if he had strived to be a corrupt politician from the start. Inui remarked that he was saying interesting things. Fools think that saying smart words makes them smart. Takeda laughed and said, "Then he's just a genius." After that, he kicked him, knocking the baton out of his hands and ruining his confidence. After which he knocked him to the floor with a knee strike and said with a smirk, "At least he knows he's wrong." Meanwhile, Yui still couldn't cope with Onodera. He clicked his tongue in annoyance and said, "It doesn't matter if one arm is injured, his real trick is his left straight punch." He hit him in the chest, knocking the air out of his lungs, and was glad that he was doing well. He continued hitting the same spot, the solar plexus, the ribs, and then the jaw. But despite all these blows, Onodera withstood and punched him in the face in return, causing him to stagger. Onodera was about to deliver another punch, but someone called out to him. Yui closed his eyes, preparing for the blow, and when he opened them, he saw Naritu holding the guy's fist. Yui called out to him in surprise, and Matsuda, who had just arrived, caught his breath and said with relief that he'd finally made it. MC thought Yui would be fine, but what about Takeda? Noticing his gaze, Takeda called him an idiot and told him not to turn away from his opponent. Naritu turned his gaze to Onodera, his second fist already flying at his face, but he managed to stop it, though his fists were still heavy for him. Inui called out to him and asked why he was there. He'd contacted them himself, said he wanted to join their ranks, and now he was doing this. And then he realized everything. He'd been deceiving them all along. He called out to Onodera and told him to crush Naritu, at least delay him. And then, once he'd finished off the little brat, he'd join in. He lunged at Takeda, wanting to do something but tripped and almost got hit. Luckily, Yui came to his aid and took the blow with his injured arm. Takeda called out to him worriedly, and he said that this arm was no longer good for anything anyway. Inui chuckled and said, "Bodies tied together are harder to break. It will be a lot of fun to play with them after his victory." Meanwhile, MC dodged Onodera's punch. His fist flew into the wall, and he thought, he no longer has the right to escape from him. He puts his entire body weight into his punches. Usually when kicking, the weight remains on the support, but this man punches, shifting completely forward. It's not just about brute force, he puts his entire body into the attacks, so the power is on a completely different level. He waited until the opponent punched, grabbed his wrist and tried to throw him over himself, but he grabbed it tightly and it didn't work. Onodera threw him into the wall. He gritted his teeth in pain and thought that he was stronger than last time. He had clearly gotten stronger. Meanwhile, Takeda knocked the baton out of Inui's hands, but he only grinned, and Yui told him to retreat. Inui pulled out a knife and swung it, causing a huge cut to appear on the guy's cheek. He was shocked that he was even capable of such a thing, and Inui was only amused. Takeda wiped away the blood and asked if he wasn't ashamed of carrying this around with him. Inui exclaimed in response, "Is there anything more pitiful in this world than losing?" Takeda said that he didn't consider losing in a fair fight pitiful at all, and he struck back and said, "You just have to do your best." Takeda dodged and noted that he was completely different, and then he exclaimed in rage that he knew nothing about him. The guy smirked and said that he was just afraid of losing, which is why he said so, which made Inui nervous. He remembered Rui saying that someone like him could rise above. A life covered in dirt is just not cool. He furiously ordered him to shut up. He was not an idiot to listen to lectures from a child. To maintain respect, he cannot afford to lose. Takeda said that this is not success, but only emptiness, and Yui agreed with him. They both pounced on him, exclaiming that he was just trying not to lose, which means he has never been in a real fight. Two fists hit him in the face, sending him flying backwards. Onodera was distracted by him, and then Naritu pounced on him, but before he could land a blow, a man appeared and said, "Childish fighting ends here." They asked him in surprise who he was, and then he showed them his ID. His name is Fujimoto Shuichiro. He is from the police. MC became very nervous, and Shuichiro decided to figure out what was going on here. He knew everyone here except Naritu. He asked his name, which made him even more nervous and wondered what he should do. Confess everything, or will they be taken away? And to the police, no less. Inui called out his name and said that this was all because of him. And Onodera said his name in shock. He told him to shut up. He was getting too presumptuous. Why didn't he deal with him? Shuichiro clarified. His name is Naritu Makoto, right? His surprised reaction gave him away. The policeman smirked and said that he understood everything. That's why he was able to last here. MC didn't know what to do. How did he even know about him? Shuichiro said that he would ask one question. What started the fight? When he was told everything, he told Inui to delete the video, and he asked discontentedly, why should he listen to him? Shuichiro said that he should obey while he was still there. He could leave anyway, it was not his shift. He smirked and asked, so in any case, he had no choice, right? He confirmed this, he had a choice. obediently delete the video now, or have it forcibly deleted after he left. He thought about it, and Onodera suggested that he finally stop this. After all, he himself was not enjoying it. He smirked and asked what he was talking about. He seemed quite cheerful. Onodera raised his voice and said that was not true. He looked different now. Inui remembered those times, then lowered his head and said that it was too late, after which he handed Naritu the phone and told him to do what he wanted. The video in the cloud, only there. Takeda looked at him suspiciously, and he said, "He is not lying. There is nothing else. It would be problematic if it leaked online. It's just a weapon. It's pointless if someone other than them can use it." After that, they went home and Takeda asked who that old man was. Matsuda noted that he knew Naritu, and Yui asked if he knew him. He confusedly answered them that he didn't remember him and thought, maybe if someone his age knew him, it could be him. He told his friends that he might be a friend of his father's, and Takeda asked in surprise, "Is his father in the police?" MC didn't know what to answer to this, and Matsuda said with a smile that the case is now closed. Kiritani joined Takeda at his side. He immediately turned to him, and he waved at him with a smile, as if nothing had happened. He indignantly asked where he had disappeared to, and Naritu, noticing a folder in his hand, asked what it was. He answered him that it was a small loot. It seems like everything went well for them. Takeda confirmed this and thanked Yui for his help, and he said irritably that he didn't do it for him. While they were arguing, Matsuda asked Naritu, that detective, he was alone, right? He replied that, according to him, he was off duty, and thought, detectives usually work in pairs, so he was investigating that club of his own free will, but for what purpose? But now he still won't find out anything. When Inui returned to the club, Rui said that he heard he lost, and the video was deleted. He confirmed this, looked away, and apologized to him, but he wanted to leave the group. Rui's face immediately changed, and Inui said that he realized what was truly important to him. Rui suddenly laughed loudly, calling him a fool. But he stayed on their side for too long, and unfortunately, he realized this too late. A guy came up behind Inui and hit him on the head with a bat, making him fall onto the table. Rui sent him away and walked up to Inui, pulled his head up by the hair, and shoved a phone in his face, saying he will let him go, but he will take back the trust and position he gave him. It's from his past, a video of him beating up a student from Shoran's rival school. If this spreads throughout his school, naturally, he will become a target, like Judas who created the spark. He slammed his head against the table and said that he won't leak it right away, but he should prepare himself to go into hiding before he can no longer walk these streets. A new day dawned. MC went to school and thought he will have to transfer to another class. He is rarely in the common building, so he is a little worried. He remembered Shuichiro. He couldn't get him out of his head. In any case, Inui should be finished now. It should finally be calmer around him. The girls who passed by him laughed, and he shuddered. Sometimes he forgets that there are girls here. He needs to get to class quickly. The girls noticed him, and one of them said that he looks completely different in the photo. They started discussing his glasses and hairstyle, after which they came up to him and asked him to take off his glasses and comb his hair back like before, which made him feel very uneasy, and he realized that there was some photo that the whole school knew about, and so he decided to urgently return to class. Covering his face with a book, he ran away. Because of this, he did not see where he was running and collided with a girl named May. She dropped the milk from her hands and fell. Naritu excitedly apologized to her and picked up her milk. She took it and stared at him somehow thoughtfully and surprised, as did he. She seemed familiar to him. He could have looked and tried to remember who she was further, but she asked why he was staring at her like that. He immediately turned away from her and apologized, and she stood up with a displeased look, sucked on her carton of milk again and left, and he thought, it's not nice that he stared. But isn't this behavior excessive? He decided not to dwell on it. In this place, both the boys and girls are total scumbags. He won't get involved with her again anyway. May returned to class. Her friends did nothing but discuss buying new clothes and money. Akagisaki boasted that her dad gives her money every month and asked May about her parents. How much do they usually give her? She was confused and with an awkward smile answered her that they give her very little. She's not on good terms with them. Saki noted that despite this, she looked like a real young lady. She thought they gave her a lot of money. She was cute, so they probably spoil her. She excitedly waved her hands and began to deny everything. Her family does not take care of her at all. The girls called out to Saki, telling her that her boyfriend was calling her, and she headed for the classroom exit. Everyone immediately started discussing their relationship, calling her boyfriend bad. Someone even said he was just using her for money, although, if you're a guy, you're supposed to pay. After listening to them, the girl called out to May and asked if she thought so too. She started mumbling, unsure what to answer, and her friend said that such a question shouldn't be asked. May was innocent. The girl, perplexed, said that it was impossible to be innocent after getting into this school. Her IQ and sense of shame were on par. While they chatted, May looked out the window and thought about something. After school, MC went to an exam prep class, and the entire time he was waiting for class to start, he was haunted by the empty seat next to him. Ranzuki said that a new girl would be joining their class, and she had scored the same as him on the prep school entrance test. He was very surprised by this and thought, does that mean the seat next to him is free? Because they have the same scores? Ranzuki said that was amazing. If she starts preparing for these courses, how much will she grow? Naritu nervously adjusted his glasses and thought, this is bad. They might overtake him. They say a person's abilities become the average of the 5 people around them. He can't sink to the level of those guys. Just thinking about it made him feel sick, and the girl worriedly asked, what's wrong? He looked strange. He laughed nervously in response, then took a deep breath and thought, he realizes that lately he's been too immersed in the life of a delinquent. That's why, in order to raise his average level, he must make friends with this new student at all costs. Finally, the teacher arrived with the new student. The students greeted her with applause, and MC had a shocked expression. The new student was Narumiya Mei, the same girl with milk he ran into at school. She sat down next to him. Class had already started, but his thoughts were completely different now. A student from Shorin High with the same scores as him, the same high school, the girl he bumped into during a change in the common area. Even if she studies there, maybe she's actually different from the others? I mean, he had his own reasons for getting into Shorin High too. So there's a chance she's an ally. But still, her appearance and behavior differed from her academic performance. Ranzuki noticed that Naritu was uneasy, and Mei constantly felt like she was being watched. By the time classes finally ended, it was already dark. He walked Ranzuki to the car and said goodbye to her, and when she left, Mei came out of the school and asked if he was waiting for her. He started denying everything, and she said that if he wanted to offer her to carry her heavy bag, she would refuse. She could easily walk on her own. He worriedly said that it was not that at all, and in the end, he just followed her. He felt awkward all this time, but he had to find out if she was his enemy or not. She threw an angry look at him and asked why he was silent and why was he following her. He became worried because he didn't know how to explain everything, and she asked what he was even doing in a cram school. He was the champion of the first-year war. Studying in a place like this was not for him at all, so why was he coming here? He told her that it was quite the opposite, and she looked at him in confusion and said, today she bumped into him. Then she thought about what he would do to her, and got really nervous, because this school is full of such impudent guys, but he just normally gave her the thing and ran away without saying anything. Now he understood what she thought of him, and she hit him on the back of the head, thanking him for his help. But he was really weird. He responded by saying that she wasn't very normal either. Why did she enter Soran? She covered her smirk and said mysteriously, she also has difficult circumstances, although at least now she knows that he is not like them. So, they are now classmates and can be friends. The next day, he waited for her at the exit of the cram school. She apologized to him for being late, and they left. He had a strange feeling. Somehow they were walking home together again today. Mei remembered something and asked, that girl, Ranzuki, does she always come by car? He answered her that it was only like that lately. She wanted to know why. She said, they talked during recess, and she said that she lived pretty close. He awkwardly scratched the back of his head and told her that it was all because of one incident. Basically, some strange guys bothered her on the road, or rather, almost dragged her away. She was surprised and asked how it all ended. At that moment, a car stopped next to them. They heard a strange sound, and then several men ran out. One of them grabbed the girl. MC was immediately flooded with memories, and he grabbed the man by the arm and threw him aside a few meters. The man who was next to them was very scared, and Naritu asked if he still wanted to continue. He backed away from him in fear, telling him not to come closer, and thought, what kind of monster is this? Rui got out of the car, applauded, and told Naritu it was impressive. He'd never seen him in action before, and he was even cooler than he'd imagined. Mei furiously ordered him to stop talking nonsense. What the hell just happened? He set this up so Naritu would get into a fight to use him. What a nasty older brother she has. Hearing this, MC looked back and forth in shock and asked, is he her older brother? When they returned home, she wondered what was going on here. Before they left, Naritu wanted to ask her about it, but her brother said that time was up. She said goodbye to Naritu and apologized for that strange behavior, then got into the car. She was pulled out of her thoughts by her brother's voice, telling their father that they were back. Narumiya Gentoku told the children that dinner was ready. Let them change their clothes and go to the living room. Soon, they were all gathered at one table. They ate in silence, and Mei glanced at her brother and thought, why today of all days? They usually all eat separately. Her father called out to her, which made her nervous, and said he heard that there was some kind of ridiculous game at school, and she was present at it, and it seemed that there was one student with exceptional skills. His name was Naritu, or something like that. What was he like? She asked him, confused, why he needed to know this, and he said that he had heard about him from Rui. Apparently he wanted to enroll in their university. It seemed that Rui, a junior, was close with this man. He confirmed this and continued. As a parent and president of the university, he felt he should know a little about what was going on. Mei was curious about this interrogation, and she asked with displeasure, had he finally decided to become a parent? He asked in response, what were her clothes made of? What was she eating now? And the place where she lived? It was all with his money, wasn't it? She agreed with this, but it wasn't money he earned. He said that things aren't created by working hands alone. Business is born where there is money. Without it, nothing would appear. Charity is just a cover. But she can live as she wants, because he allowed her to. However, her childish protest can no longer be ignored. She couldn't stand it any longer, jumped up from the table and slapped it with her palms in anger. telling him to stop talking nonsense. He sent a card today just to ask about Naritu. Without looking up from his meal, he asked in response, would he really send someone for a simple question? A child's time and his time are not of equal value. She furiously reminded him that he left her alone all this time, and he asked, does she still think she's a child? Non-interference is not the same as inaction. So, what is he like, this Naritu? A new day has arrived, classes are almost over, and MC is planning to call May to go to cram school together. And he also wants to ask her about what happened yesterday. So May is Rui's younger sister, a brother from an elite cram school, and a sister from the worst high school, but the best in the courses. But still, why is she here? There are much better schools than this one. Laughter came from May's class. He decided to see what was going on, heard May's name, and looked inside through the window. A crowd of girls were forcing another to eat from the floor, and May was filming the whole thing on her phone. This sight made him uneasy, and he thought, why is she doing this? The girl continued to swallow rice in tears, and Saki pulled her hair, asking, is this okay? Did her mom make this for her? She mumbled and threw it on the floor, and Naritu thought that they were definitely making fun of her. He turned his gaze to May and thought, is she just like them? Saki poured a carton of milk into that girl's rice and said that it would make everything tastier. She's a dog, right? She sometimes mixes soup into her dog's food. The other girls giggled quietly, and Saki pushed the rice towards the girl and told her to eat. She said something in a trembling voice, then she stroked her head and asked with a smile, did she talk? Can dogs talk? She didn't know that. Right after that, she slammed her face into the rice. She started choking, and Saki said, if she can't talk anymore, then let her raise her left paw. She raised her hand, Saki hit her again and called her an idiot. Dogs don't raise their paws like that. MC was shocked. It was a strong blow for him. The friend he finally found, a student who shares his values, a study partner he no longer hoped for, was really like that. But May herself couldn't watch it. Her hands trembled. She turned away and met the shocked gaze of Naritu, and she herself was scared. After the preparatory work, they walked home together as usual. MC was awkward, but he wanted to make sure of everything and started mumbling, and May, without even looking at him, sternly told him to say what he needed. He asked why she entered Seoran High School. She told him that it was none of his business and headed for the exit, and he followed her excitedly and said that it was weird. She was a good student and seemed normal when they talked. She stopped and turned to him, asking, so what? He awkwardly looked away. But she must have a reason for this. She told him that, of course there was a reason, but it wasn't something he had made up. It really wasn't a cool reason at all, just a normal teenage rebellion. She had a lot of other options, other schools to go to, emergency exits, and so on. Despite all this, she specifically chose this school of her own free will. Being with those girls, filming that video of the bullying of a student, all of it was her choice. An image of her older brother covered in blood immediately popped into her head, and MC asked, is she serious? These memories made her shudder, quickly pulled herself together, and told him that it was really serious. She also suggested that they not meet at school anymore. She decided to live her life the way she wanted, and she would never live the way he told her to. They had a pretty good relationship as children. One day, she came home happily, and her brother came out to greet her. She quickly took off her shoes, wanted to tell him something, and ran toward him, but tripped on the threshold and fell face first onto the floor. Rui immediately ran up to her, and fortunately, he managed to catch her and told her to be more careful next time. She lowered her head, apologizing to him, and he asked with a smile, did something happen to her? He was the brother she was proud of, an excellent person. He was athletic and very kind. They were as close as brother and sister, but at one point, he changed a lot. When they were older, she left the room, heard a noise on the first floor, and thought, was it Rui? Lately, he had been coming home late. She went downstairs and found her father talking to him, and judging by his face, it was something serious. Her father left. May immediately went up to Rui, and he asked if she was there. She crossed her arms over her chest and asked if something was wrong. Did he tell him something important? He told her that it was not so. She wanted to ask something, and then he got up, saying he had nothing to tell her, unlike the nonsense she usually spouted. These words angered her. She did not understand why he was suddenly acting like this, and he brought up the topic of high school, which they had talked about before. Why doesn't she go to boarding school? It seems that studying is the only thing she is good at. It will be better this way. Let her go somewhere far away. After that, he left, leaving her completely confused. Returning to her room, she began to vent her anger on the pillow and wondered what he had talked about with father. After that, Rui started doing whatever he wanted. Threats, attacks, lynchings. She didn't see everything. But when you live next to him, you inevitably notice everything. The smell of blood constantly emanated from him. There was nothing left of that sweet older brother. So she decided to enter Seoran High School, filled out the application, dyed her hair, and got a new haircut. She decided that if he was going to do whatever he wanted, then she would do the same. Now, she just told Naritu that she chose this high school of her own free will. And why did he go here too? Now she knows that inside he is an ordinary person, just like he looks. So why is he here? He honestly admitted to her that he failed his exams, which shocked her. And at first, she didn't even believe him. He has the best grades even in the preparatory courses. But it was true. He failed. The results speak for themselves. This conversation made him feel uneasy. He ran away under the pretext of buying a drink, and she was left waiting outside the store. She sighed heavily and wondered what she was doing. She was suddenly pulled out of her thoughts by a guy's voice. He suddenly approached her and asked, "What happened?" She moved away from him and asked, "Who the hell was he?" He was too close to her. He pointed at himself with a smile and asked, "She knows him, right? She's in Saki's company, right? I mean, they've talked a couple of times before." She remembered him. This is Saki's boyfriend. He's so insignificant that she almost didn't even remember him. He said that she looked kind of sad, so he decided to approach her. He said goodbye to her, inviting her to play with him next time, and she frowned with displeasure, wishing he would get hit by a car. At that moment, MC came up to her and asked, was that her acquaintance? The two of them continued on, but Saki witnessed this scene, and now she harbored a deep grudge against Mei. A new day dawned. The girls were chatting as usual, and Saki told them that lately she felt like her boyfriend had become somehow cold. Her friend asked if she was serious. They were always in each other's arms. Saki said she was also curious about why he was acting like this, and asked about Mei. Didn't she know? She smiled awkwardly, and immediately noticed that the atmosphere was unusual, and told her that she didn't really understand it. Saki didn't ask her any more questions and pointed to the clock, saying that the next lesson was soon. They needed to move to another classroom, right? Mei was surprised that they needed to go somewhere, and Saki smiled slyly and said where their lesson was. She believed her and went to the lesson there, but no one was there, so she ran to another classroom and was late, and Saki sat and enjoyed herself. Time passed, and during recess, Niritu went to the toilet. He heard voices outside the window and thought, this is why bullies love the back of the school so much. And then he heard something interesting. The guy said that he would make Mei his. When he mentioned her name, he immediately went to the window and looked out. There were two guys standing there. The same one who had hit on her the other night and his friend. The guy said that she had a fashionable vibe, but at the same time, a rich girl charm, and it really turned him on. His friend asked, but he has Saki, doesn't he? He replied that she wasn't bad looking either, but she was already starting to get on his nerves. Besides, lately she hadn't wanted to sleep with him at all. His friend remarked that it was pretty harsh, and he said, but there's Mei. Once he tames her, she'll be more obedient. He asked, does he really think so? In his opinion, she was pretty wayward. He smirked and said, that's the whole point, to subjugate her. The MC couldn't bear to listen to this and left the toilet. At this time, Mei was in the cafeteria with her group, and while the girls were constantly discussing guys, she decided to take a break under the pretext of going to the restroom. While she was buying drinks, Saki's boyfriend approached her and said that he has something to talk with her about. Could she go with him? She agreed, and at that very moment, some girl found out about it and rushed to tell Saki everything, and she started by asking if she had broken up with her boyfriend. Saki didn't like this, and the girl told her that she had just seen him with Mei. It turned out that he had taken her to an empty classroom and there asked her to go out with him. She nervously pursed her lips and looked away, realizing that this guy could get her into trouble, and reminded him that he actually had Saki. He told her that they had broken up, or rather, that he was breaking up with her, so he didn't care anymore. Of course, Saki, who had just arrived, heard everything and exclaimed indignantly, he's breaking up with her? Looking at her furious and tired look after running, he became nervous and said, apparently, nothing can be done now. He pulled Mei towards him by the waist and declared that he was breaking up with her. The girl's face immediately darkened. She furiously told him not to fool around and, calling Mei all sorts of names, exclaimed, what the hell is she even doing? Mei tried to push the guy away from her and began to deny everything, but he was so afraid of Saki that he clung to her with a death grip. Saki reached for the fire extinguisher and exclaimed, what did she think she was doing? She went to lunch, and now she's flirting with someone else's guy? Realizing what she was about to do, he nervously asked her to wait, and then she furiously attacked them with the fire extinguisher, wishing death on them both. The guy immediately hid behind Mei, then the fire extinguisher flew out the window. Luckily, it didn't hit her. But that wasn't enough for Saki. She pulled out a box cutter, and with a crazy smile, walked toward her, saying, she won't kill her, but she will ruin her face, so that she can no longer live a normal life. Meanwhile, in the building across the street, Naritu was already sitting in the classroom, and Kiritani approached him. He asked where Matsuda and Takeda were, and the guy told him they most likely went to the store. He saw a broken window in the building across the street, and told Naritu to look there. That's where the women's wing was, where they had caused a scene. MC wasn't very interested, but he looked anyway and saw Mei, which immediately changed his gaze. Kiritani opened the window to watch, and Naritu remembered Mei filming the bullying. He was upset with her, and decided not to interfere. Then Kiritani showed him her social media account and said, it looks like she's in a lot of trouble. Her account is mostly private. Almost no one watches her, but he followed her. MC saw a video on her profile with the caption, Sos. Immediately went to the window and wondered if she really asked for help. Everyone had already come running to the noise in that classroom. Saki started waving the knife furiously, and Mei barely dodged. Her boyfriend kept asking her to calm down. Even her friends told her that a knife was too dangerous, but she didn't listen at all. She was furious. She ran at Mei, who backed away, but tripped over her boyfriend's leg and crashed into the window. There was no escape route for her, and Saki was very close. She closed her eyes, preparing for the blow, but nothing happened. Naritu came to her aid in time. He grabbed the girl girl by the arm, not letting her move, and she exclaimed in rage, "Who the hell is he?" He squeezed her hand harder so that she would release the knife and asked what she was trying to do just now. "You can't point a knife at people." She stepped back, and he walked up to May and asked if everything was okay. He held out his hands to help, but she waved him off and asked him discontentedly, "He really hates this kind of thing, right? So why did he come?" He answered her with a serious face. He really doesn't like fighting, but he realized that she's not like those guys he hates. The guy indignantly pointed his finger at him and asked, "Who the hell is this? Is he really her boyfriend?" But she said she's single, so that means she lied to him and cheated on him. She exclaimed that she had never had a relationship with him, and he said he was targeting her, so he didn't care. He picked up a knife, told the girl to stand there, and he would kill this guy. The MC immediately stood up for her, thinking, what kind of nonsense is this idiot talking? Some guy from the crowd recognized him. He warned the guy that he was a first year, but he didn't care about it. He pounced on him and exclaimed, he will show him who's boss here. But he immediately got hit by Niridu, which made him a little confused. The guy from the crowd of students exclaimed that he was the winner of the first-year war, but he found it hard to believe. This guy who looks like a nerd, the winner of the first-year war? That student immediately ran away, screaming about how he hates physical violence. And the guy, furious, gritted his teeth and attacked Niridu, telling him not to make fun of him. He knocked the knife out of his hand, then punched him in the face while he was confused. But there was no blow. Instead, the guy just felt a stream of air that hit him in the face. He realized that this nerd is not so simple and just decided to run away. And May, furious, called him an idiot and ran after him to teach him a lesson. MC excitedly called out to her, asking her to wait, and Saki also joined the pursuit. That's how May ran after this guy all the way to the back of the school, but lost sight of him, and Saki caught up with her, jumping out the window. Hearing a noise behind her, she immediately turned around, and Saki, picking up a steel pipe from the ground, exclaimed that everything went wrong because of her. If only she wasn't here, everything would be fine. She still did something to him behind her back, right? After all, she is rich. When she was watching her, she saw that she lived in a huge mansion. Had she been bullying them all this time? She thought they were friends. And then, May was overcome with intense anger. She didn't even understand why at first. Gritting her teeth in rage, she walked towards her and asked who else had been bullying and making fun of whom. She grabbed her by the collar, harshly pressed her back against the wall, and exclaimed, "All this time, who does she think has been enduring this bullying the most?" Before she could finish speaking, something hard and heavy hit her on the head, and she fell to her knees. Blood began to flow from the wound on her head, and the girl who hit her with the stone asked Saki, she would give her her branded bag for this, right? She confirmed this with a smile, then took May's phone, did something and showed it to her, saying, "This is what she deserves." She wrote a message to her friend to come behind the school,